Chapter 1 Got married to a strange woman. I just got reborn and I'm already being dragged off to get married? Blue Star, Lynn City, in front of the Civil Affairs Bureau. Chewie frowned, looked down and pinched the bright red cover of the marriage certificate, and looked blankly at his serious and beautiful wife opposite him. This woman had a slender waist and an impressive figure. She wore ascetic gold-rimmed glasses on her high nose, and her mouth was painted with thick red lips. A small suit, and a stepmother dress that accentuated her figure. The woman in sunglasses seemed to see Chewie observing her, but she didn't mind. My family is pushing me to hurry, I just want to regain my freedom. Don't worry, we're just getting married for show, I won't interfere with your love life. I just added our contact information, let's just be friends. Is there anything else you want to ask me? Looking at the woman in front of him, Chewie hesitated for a moment. That. What? The woman asked coldly. Since we're married, does that mean you're my wife by default? Can you kiss me now? What? The woman didn't expect Chewie to make such a request. Her sunglasses slipped off, and Chewie suddenly saw her eyebrows raised beneath them, her big eyes staring at him. She had never been in love before, and naturally had never kissed anyone before. Chewie's sudden request made her blush and feel awkward. I can't, goodbye. After saying this, the woman stepped on her high heels and got into her Mercedes without looking back. I just added my contact information, let's get in touch when you have time. After saying this, the woman directly stepped on the accelerator, just like a scumbag who puts on his pants and doesn't recognize anyone. Hey, make it clear. Do I know you? With the sound of the car starting, Chewie's voice was directly drowned out in the sound. Damn it! What the hell? Chewie looked down at the little red notebook again and felt his body, which was still in his early 20s. He had to accept that he had really been reborn. And reborn in a different world, where you could get married at the age of 18. So, not even a minute after he had been reborn, he was dragged by an extremely beautiful, aloof and elegant woman into the Civil Affairs Bureau and got his little red notebook. No, I've finally become a successful man, and now you've turned me into a pure love boy? God, you're kidding me. And when did I ever marry such a beautiful woman? I think I've got the wrong script. Complaining to no one in particular, Chewie sighed helplessly and stuffed the little red book into his bag. After being reborn, his memory told him that today was the day he reported to university. Chewie took out another piece of red paper, which was his university admission notice. After pulling his suitcase and leaving the Civil Affairs Bureau, Chewie crossed the road and saw a tall gate with the words Shanghai University of Geology written on it. He looked down and then looked again at the major on the admission notice, paleontology. Yes, he was the legend of a student in a major with only one student. In Chewie's memory, the faculty of paleontology at Shanghai University of Geology was very strong, because this was the only university in the entire Shanghai province that offered a major in paleontology. Experts in paleontology were in a hurry. Seeing that there was no one to succeed him in the major, they were facing the painful situation of a succession gap. So in Chewie's year, Shanghai University of Geology welcomed the most luxurious faculty in its history. There were 4 professors teaching specialized courses. The leading figure in the field was even an academician of the Chinese Academy of Sciences, Mr. Zhao Tingjun. Mr. Zhao Tingjun has been researching paleontology for more than 50 years and has witnessed the gradual rise of paleontology in China. When Chewie went to university, Mr. Zhao even took care of him. He even extended an olive branch to him more than once. He said that as long as Chewie was willing to continue to study paleontology in depth, he was willing to take him as his disciple. But Chewie refused at the time. After all, the employment prospects for paleontology were narrow and the future was worrying. He just wanted to make money, so he plunged headlong into the vast ocean of business. Chewie. While Chewie was in a daze, the 2 professors who were helping him make his bed in the dormitory called out to him. Hey! Chewie suddenly woke up from his memories. He had just completed the new student admission procedures and was now packing up his dormitory. The paleontology professors attached great importance to Chewie, the only child in his family, and even Professors Lu and Wang came in person to welcome him to the university. With the care of the 2 professors, Chewie's registration was in VLP mode. He didn't have to worry about the dorm key, bedding, or paying fees. The 2 professors took care of it all. Even when they went to the dormitory assigned to Chewie, the 2 professors personally made his bed for him. Chewie wanted to help, but was refused. Professor Wang handed Chewie a card. This is our school's student card, which can be used directly for meals, showers, and so on. Shui said thank you, and when he thought about the past, his eyes couldn't help but turn a little red. In his previous life, these professors and teachers spoiled him like this, treating him like their precious heart and heir. Chua still remembers that when he mentioned that he wanted to eat authentic beggar's chicken, Professor Wang rode his bicycle 10 kilometers to buy one from Lee's. He doesn't know if it was authentic, but it really touched him. Sometimes, when Chua didn't go home for the holidays, the professors would always stay behind to keep him company. It was the selfless care of these professors that made Chua always feel good about paleontology. After graduating, he worked in the business sector, but he has always been interested in paleontology. Ding dong. While Chuhi was reminiscing about the past, his phone suddenly rang. He opened the group chat for new students and saw that a teacher named Lin Jiqing had said, "Classmates, come to room 102 in the Xing building for a class meeting in a while to meet everyone." The following row received. Without rushing to reply, out of habit, Chuhi clicked into Lin's teacher's circle of friends. At the top of the list was a post that said, "I am the friend of the freest person in the world." Chua saw a photo of teacher Lin's life, and his pupils suddenly shot up. It was her. The woman who had pulled me into marriage as soon as I was reborn. What a sin, she's my counselor. Chapter 2 The stairwell is a good place to do intimate things. Xing building. Shui stepped onto the stairs, but he was still holding his phone and looking at Lin Jiqing's circle of friends. Wasn't his counselor in the previous life a middle-aged woman? Did returning to life cause a butterfly to flap its wings, changing even the people? At this moment, Shui suddenly thought of the names of some indecent little movies in his head. My Days with the Teacher in the Office. There's only me and her in the classroom, please teacher. Dear teacher, you don't want everyone to know about the shotgun wedding, do you? Cough cough. Chua slapped his head to try to wake himself up. After living a second time, he was still being thrown off by a woman? After comforting himself, Chua walked more determinedly through the hall of Xing building and arrived at the door of room 102. This was a tiered classroom, and the early students had already filled the seats in the back. Chua could only pick a seat in the first 3 rows. He glanced at Lin Jiqing on the podium. As usual, she was wearing a little suit and a skirt, and her fair thighs were generously on display. Her perfect figure and stunning face made an impeccable contrast. Even though they had been reincarnated twice, Shui had to admit that this Lin Jiqing was the best of the best. But Lin Jiqing didn't see him. At this time, teacher Lin was still concentrating on projecting the screen onto the classroom screen. Shu-hee, this. At this moment, his roommate Wang Zibo waved at him. Chua quickly walked up to Wang Zibo's side, in the 3rd row. You are the only one majoring in paleontology, and the professor personally made your bed for you, which makes the rest of us feel bad about staying in the dorm. Having just started school, Wang Zibo was still polite. Chua knew his best friend very well. His grades were average, and he usually liked to stay in the dorm playing games. Although he really wanted to fall in love, he only talked about it but never took action. However, the two were not yet familiar with each other, so Chuhi didn't tease him. He glanced behind him. Behind him were all the other geology students. Unlike high school, in college, each tutor had many students. Some students even graduated from college without knowing what their tutors looked like. Okay, everyone. As Lin Jiqing on the podium spoke, the students below immediately fell silent. Many of the male students' eyes were fixed on Lin Jiqing. The tutor is so pretty. Prince Bo muttered. Lin Jiqing had worked for a year and had become accustomed to the stares of these male college students. She glanced down at the students and blurted out, "Is everyone here?" Then her eyes swept to Chuhi in the 3rd row, and instantly her body trembled as if she had been electrocuted. How could it be him? My husband in a flash marriage is actually one of my students. If this gets out, what will people say? There are so many people in the world, how is it just a coincidence that I picked someone at random off the street and he is my student? Lin Jiqing's pupils fluttered as she stared blankly at Chuhi. Seeing his nominal wife staring at him, he didn't lower his head shyly like those male college students who had just enrolled, but instead, he smiled at Lin Jiqing generously. At this time, a short-haired girl next to him said, "Teacher, there are still 3 students missing from the geology engineering program." Good. Lin Jiqing nodded absent-mindedly and said to the girl, "You take care of things for me for a while, I have something I need to take care of." The girl quickly agreed, and Lin Jiqing immediately waved to Chu-hee, the male student in the 3rd row, "Come and help the teacher." Is it me? Teacher. Wang Zibo was so excited that he thought she was calling him, so he stood up awkwardly. Lin Jiqing quickly shook her head. No, it's the student to your left. Everyone's eyes turned towards Chu He. Envy, jealousy, all kinds of glances intersected. But Chu He slowly got up. He naturally knew what Lin teacher wanted with him, so he followed Lin Jiqing to the stairwell at the back of the classroom. There were very few people here, which was suitable for doing something intimate. Teacher, is there something you need? After confirming that Chu He was the young boy she had just married, Lin Jiqing covered her chest and kept calming herself down from her surprise. Are you short of breath? Chu He said harmlessly, do you want me to give you mouth-to-mouth resuscitation? Lin Jiqing blushed a little, and remembering the scene just now when he asked for a kiss, she glared at Chu He angrily. Then she forced herself to calm down, and she said, what's your major? Paleontology. Chu He replied. This is a sudden move by the teacher. The family is pressuring me too much, so I thought of this trick. How about this, you divorce the teacher after class? No way. Why? Seeing Chu He's refusal, Lin Jiqing stared at him with sharp eyes. Because there is a 1-month cooling-off period for married people, and it takes at least a month to get a divorce. Really? Lin Jiqing's momentum weakened a bit. It seems that there is such a rule. Then that's all for now. Besides, I won't divorce you after a month. Chu He said firmly. What did you say? Lin Jiqing was, after all, Chu He's teacher, and when she saw her student contradicting her, she immediately frowned. But Chu He did not flinch in the slightest. He spoke clearly and logically. First, you are the one who insisted on marrying me. You can marry me if you want, and divorce me if you want. What do you take me for? Second, I think you are quite good-looking, and you meet the requirements of the wife I have in mind. Why don't we just make a real marriage out of this pretend one? What? You. I am your teacher. Lin Jiqing did not expect Chu He to say such things, and her fair face visibly turned red. Pointing a finger at Chu He, Lin Jiqing was so angry that she couldn't say anything. If there's nothing else, I'll be going back to the classroom, Miss Lin. After saying this, Chu He left the stairwell without looking back. It was impossible to reason with Chu He, so that was the end of the matter for now. Looking at Chu He's back, Lin Jiqing stamped her foot in anger and then returned to the classroom as well. Chu He sat back down in his seat, and his neighbor, Wang Zibo, asked curiously, what did the teacher want you to do? Carry books? Chu He gave Wang Zibo a meaningful look and said, it's none of a child's business what adults do. Forget it, if you don't want to say. But I really envy you. I stood up, but she still told you to go out. I missed the chance to be alone with the beautiful teacher, alas. While Wang Zibo was complaining, Lin Jiqing on the podium had already gathered herself together and returned to the podium. The attentive girl told her that everyone was present. She nodded and took the microphone, saying, Students, first of all, welcome to Shanghai Geological University. I am your counselor. My name is Lin Jiqing, and I am also very likely to be your teacher for ideology. Lin Jiqing gave her usual opening remarks. But she couldn't help looking over to Chu He. Damn it! My student is also my husband. What kind of strange relationship is this? Chapter 3, Don't Call Me Wife. The orientation for new students is always the same. The teacher introduces herself, then encourages everyone not to lose heart in college, to study hard and become useful talents for the country. For a reborn person like Chu He, this stuff is of no interest, so after listening for a while, he fell asleep on the table. For some reason, he even dreamed about Lin Jiqing, in which Lin Jiqing was making his favorite braised pork knuckle for him. Chua even said to her in a sweet voice, Honey, you've worked hard. Then he put his arms around her and the two of them kissed passionately. Chua was having a sweet dream on the table, while the other students in the class were mostly playing with their phones below. Lin Jiqing had long known the state of these college students. But it had been like this since the beginning of the first year, and she just couldn't bear to watch anymore. Then she saw her little husband Chu He already snoring on the table, and an instant wave of anger welled up in her. So she yelled into the microphone, the sleeping boy in the third row, sit next to me. The sound was so loud that all the students below looked up. Seeing that the teacher was angry, many students silently put away their phones. Lin Jiqing pointed to the small stool on the podium, indicating that Wang Zibo wake Chu He. He nudged Chu He, and then gently called out, Chu He, Chu He. The teacher is calling you. He nudged him 3 times, and Chu He slowly raised his head. Perhaps he had dreamed of Lin Jiqing in his sleep, or perhaps his mind was still not clear, because as soon as he stood up, he exclaimed, "Wife, what is it?" The class was in an uproar. "Holy shit, wife! Awesome, whose subordinate is this? Not a buddy, you're calling my goddess wife? Damn it! Why? That's my wife, you're not allowed to call her that." The audience immediately became chaotic. The girl with short hair stood up again and shouted at the top of her voice, telling everyone to be quiet. This girl was so proactive, perhaps she wanted to run for office as a class leader. Lin Jiqing's face flushed again. She slammed the table and shouted, "Chua, not only did you sleep in class, but you also dared to molest the teacher? Sit next to me." After saying that, she pointed to the small bench next to her. It was originally used by the school to give preferential treatment to some old professors, so that they could sit during class. But now she was the one sitting on it. Chu He sighed. There was no way around it. She was his wife, so he would spoil her. So he got up, walked over to Lin Jiqing's side, and sat down. Lin Jiqing quickly warned the others, "Anyone who misbehaves again and plays with their phone or sleeps, will also sit next to me and keep him company." Once she said this, there was once again deathly silence in the audience. Lin Jiqing was satisfied to see that the situation was under control, and her gaze softened as she looked at Chu He, who was sitting upright and straight. She said, "Okay, everyone, introduce yourselves. You start." Lin Jiqing pointed at Chu He. Chu He didn't argue, stood up, and introduced himself. "Hello everyone, I'm Chu He from the neighboring city of Xiong. I've never been in love, but I'm already married." Wow! Although the marriageable age in this world is 18, very few people get married right after that. Therefore, after Chu He finished speaking, there was an immediate burst of cheers from the crowd. "Classmate, what's your wife's name? Is she from our school? It can't be the counselor. Dude, you're awesome, you really moved fast. No, I don't even know which way the door to the Civil Affairs Bureau is open, and you got married already?" The mood of the students in the audience became lively, and the girls in the front row stood up again to control everyone's emotions. Lin Jiqing didn't expect Chu He to say that, and her face immediately turned a bright red. "You! Sit down. You can't talk about getting married during your self-introduction." Lin Jiqing was afraid that these classmates would really gossip about Chu He marrying her, and if that happened, how could she really go to work? "Hurry up and press Chu He," Lin Jiqing shouted, "next." Lin Jiqing glanced at Wang Zibo. The boring personal introductions were over, and Lin Jiqing gave a few more nagging remarks before sending everyone back to their dormitories. Of course, Chu He was left behind again. This time, Lin Jiqing's excuse was that Chu He had openly disrupted classroom order and she wanted to take him to the office to reprimand him. Lin Jiqing's office was a separate room, which made Chu He very strange. Because usually tutors and teachers have group offices. Chu He was a little confused, but Lin Jiqing was already sitting in the chair. She stared at Chu He with her arms folded. Chu He also looked at her. For a moment, the atmosphere was a little off. Lin Jiqing brushed her long hair behind her ears and said to Chu He, "Since things have come to this, I want to make a pact with you." "My wife, please speak." Chu He said. "First, don't call me your wife. Only call me teacher or counselor." Lin Jiqing said loudly, "Second, we are only getting married for show, we will not interfere with each other's private lives, and at school we will only have an ordinary teacher-student relationship. You cannot disclose your marriage at school. You also have to explain to your classmates about the self-introduction you just gave, and just say that you deliberately said you were married in order to get attention. Third, you have to do me a favor. You said, for a while, pretend to be my husband and go home with me to comfort my mother." "Go home with you?" Hearing this, Chu He's eyes lit up. He didn't have time to refute the other two, and quickly agreed, "I'm willing." Seeing Chu He agree so readily, Lin Jiqing had a feeling of a lamb going into the jaws of a tiger. "I said pretend. You can't have other thoughts about me. Good wife. Don't call me wife. Okay, can I go now?" Wife. Lin Jiqing is arrogant. Even in front of her classmates, she is a stern and aloof teacher, but in front of Chu He, who has been through a lot, Lin Jiqing is mentally weak like a little girl. Or the kind of little girl who always holds her head high. Chu He naturally has a way to deal with such a woman. Leaving Lin Jiqing's office, Chu He walked towards the dormitory while thinking. Back in the dormitory, Wang Zibo and the others were nowhere to be seen. The two professors had also left long ago, but a note from Professor Wan was left on Chu He's made-up bed. Chu, tonight Professor Zhao and all the teachers in the paleontology department are treating you to dinner, so tell everyone in your dormitory to come. Oh, and remember to add me on WeChat. Professor Zhao was Zhao Tingjun, an academician of the Chinese Academy of Sciences and one of the leading figures in paleontology. Shui quickly opened his phone and sure enough, he saw several messages to add friends. Wang Zibo's, Kong Deyang and Sun Dajing's, the other two roommates. And Professor Wang and Professor Lu's. And Lin Jiqing? After approving the requests one by one, Lin Jiqing immediately sent a message. At 6 p.m., I'll come pick you up. Shuhi replied, Lin's sister, I can't. The professional teacher invited me to dinner tonight. In the morning at the office, Shuhi repeatedly called Lin Jiqing's wife, and Lin Jiqing gave him a severe lecture. So, he had to settle for calling her sister. Lin Jiqing also backed down a step, as long as Shuhi didn't call her his wife. Okay, then, 9 o'clock? Shuhi replied. After sending the message, Wang Zibo, Kong Deyang and Sun Dajing pushed open the door. Seeing Shuhi, Wang Zibo hurriedly asked, Shuhi, is your marriage partner really the counselor? Now it's all over our class. Shuhi gave Wang Zibo a blank look, really, but teacher Lin hasn't agreed yet, and I'm pursuing her. Cut it out. I don't believe you, Wang Zibo said, then lay down on his own bed and changed the subject, saying, guys, let's go out for dinner tonight. All right. No problem. Sun Dajing said to Kong Deyang. No need, Shuhi said, I'll treat you 3 tonight. What? Really, Godfather? Prince Bo rolled over in bed and stood up again. If you really invite the 3 of us to dinner, I'll be willing to worship you as my adoptive father. Coincidentally, at this time, a message came from Professor Wang on his phone, Phoenix Restaurant at 6 p.m. 6 p.m., Phoenix Restaurant. Shuhi waved his hand imperiously and said, Shit, that's the top restaurant in Lin City. Chapter 4. Before taking the teacher, first take the mother-in-law. In Shui's memory, there were 6 teachers in the paleontology major, led by Zhao Lao, and the rest were Professor Lu and Professor Wang. There were also 2 female professors, one named Ma Xiaofeng and one named Zhang Gaoan. They were both in their early 40s, and relatively speaking, these 2 female professors were very strict with Shuhi. There was also a female teacher in her 20s named Chen Tingting. Although her looks cannot compare to Lin Jiqing's, she is still considered pretty. At 5:30 p.m., the 4 people from Chuhi's dormitory took a taxi and headed towards the Fengwang restaurant. They officially arrived at the restaurant at 6 o'clock. At this moment, Wang Zibo realized that the meal was paid for by Chuhi's teachers, not Chuhi. After getting off the taxi, Chuhi saw 6 teachers standing at the door waiting for him. Even Zhao Laosher was waiting at the door. Seeing this, Shuhi said to himself, holy shit, and immediately got out of the car and ran all the way to Luren, bowing and saying, hello, teachers. Seeing the young Shuhi, Zhao Lao smiled happily. He took Shuhi's hand and said, seeing you, we paleontology has someone to carry on the torch. Shuhi smiled embarrassedly. The eyes of the 3 Wang Zibo people were full of envy. Which teacher in any subject can do what the paleontology teacher did, helping students carry their luggage, unrolling their bed sheets, and even treating them to dinner on the first day of school? Even the highly respected old professor came out to greet them personally, which shows how highly they value Shuhi. These 3 are your roommates, right? Zhao Laoi pointed at Wang Zibo. Shuhi quickly took Zhao Laoi's arm on his side and introduced the 3 of them in turn. After the greetings were over, everyone returned to the private room. A few dishes from Fengwang restaurant's specialty menu were ordered, and Professor Wang and the other 2 middle-aged female professors kept on serving Shuhi. Even the taciturn Professor Lu put meat on his plate without saying a word. In Shuhi's impression, Professor Lu always seemed to be thin and tall, taciturn, wearing a black shirt and black pants. Apart from teaching him and solving practical problems for him, he hardly ever said anything else. In contrast, Professor Wang, who had the closest relationship with Professor Lu, looked like a typical middle-aged man. He always wore a plaid shirt, which had to be tucked into his trousers, and a section of his trousers was always hanging out. When giving lectures to Shuhi, he leaned at an angle, holding onto the lectern with one hand while drawing on the blackboard with the other, spitting out words with great enthusiasm. However, Professor Wang had a passionate heart and never hid his knowledge from Shuhi. Seeing these 6 respected teachers again, Shui's eyes welled up with tears as he continued eating. His dining companion, Prince Bo, also had red eyes, but not from emotion. It looked like he had a bit of pink eye. 9 p.m. After bidding farewell to Zhao Lao, the other 5 teachers also left one after another. After helping his roommates get into their cars, Shui sent them back to the dormitory on the pretext of having something to do. Then, he saw Lin Jiqing's Mercedes-Benz C slowly approaching. She lowered the window and glanced at Shui. "Have you finished eating?" Shui nodded and got into the passenger seat. He glanced at Lin Jiqing and said, "Teacher, did you put on lipstick?" Lin Jiqing pursed her lips and denied, "No, I put it on during the day." Shui smiled and didn't say anything. "What are you smiling at?" "Nothing, I just think you look very pretty at night." Lin Jiqing's face flushed slightly, but she still pretended to be calm and drove. Although she was 29 years old, she had never been in a serious relationship. Even though she had once wanted to fall in love, she never felt love with other people, but instead felt a strong sense of pressure. But it was different with Chu He. She didn't know why. "You're so rude," Lin Jiqing said to Chu He. "When we get to my house, don't say anything, and just do as I say." "That's not up to you," Chu He muttered. "What did you say?" Lin Jiqing slammed on the brakes. Chu He hurriedly corrected himself. "It's fine, I said I'll do whatever you say." Lin Jiqing nodded, and because of her sedentary lifestyle, she had to straighten her body every now and then when driving, otherwise her back would ache. Every time she straightened, Shui would subconsciously look over at Lin Jiqing. "What are you looking at?" "Nothing," Shui said seriously. "I want to see how my teacher feeds the steering wheel." "You." Lin Jiqing clenched her teeth and said, "You mustn't joke like this with me." But after saying that, Lin Jiqing still silently retracted her proud breasts. The two argued and finally ran back from the eastern district of Lincheng to the western district. After parking the car, Lin Jiqing looked at Chu He again uneasily. She always felt that there was a strange quality about this college student. "But I can't put my finger on it. Let's go upstairs." "Don't talk nonsense, just do as I say. If you don't want to go back, just smile and I'll take care of it for you." Lin Jiqing once again emphasized the rules. The passenger side Chu He, however, couldn't wait any longer and quickly opened the car door and got out. The two walked side by side into the building and took the elevator to the 12th floor. Xinha Community 1201, Chu He silently memorized this address in his heart. This was his new home. When he opened the door, a middle-aged woman with a plump figure, wearing a colorful vest and a smile on her face, was standing in the entrance hall. When she saw Chu He, she immediately came up to him and scrutinized him from top to bottom. She said, "Oh, you've really brought your son-in-law home? He looks so young, is he still a college student?" Lin Jiqing stood behind her without saying a word, no longer having the imposing presence she had downstairs. Instead, Shui greeted her warmly, "Hello, Auntie." "Hello. I really didn't expect it. I've introduced her to so many marriage candidates, and she's rejected them all. I didn't realize she had someone in mind already." The middle-aged woman spoke enthusiastically to Chu He, while taking his hand and leading him into the living room. "You look very young. How old are you?" "I'm 18. Chu He told the truth. 18. The middle-aged woman's eyes were smiling so widely that they were about to close. "My girl is stubborn. She makes her own decisions about everything and doesn't like to discuss it with me. Of course, our family is very open-minded. As long as you treat Qingqing well, we'll be fine with anything." She took Chu He and sat down in the living room. Only then did Chu He notice that there was someone standing in the kitchen facing the living room, cutting fruit. It looked like a man, with his back to Chu He. "Oh, that's Qingqing's father," the woman added immediately when she saw Chu He looking around the kitchen. "Uncle is really a good man. These days, there aren't many men who are willing to cook in the kitchen. You should treasure him, Auntie." After Chu He finished speaking, the man in the kitchen didn't react at all, just continuing to process the fruit as if he hadn't heard. The middle-aged woman and Lin Jiqing even found it normal. The middle-aged woman quickly changed the subject. "You young people really know how to talk, but it's time to change your tune. You and Qingqing have already gotten your marriage certificate." Chu He glanced at Lin Jiqing, who secretly warned him with her eyes. But Chu He didn't listen. The first step to taking a wife is to take her mother-in-law first. "Mom." Chua spoke without hesitation. Chapter 5. What's in the teacher's bedroom closet? "Hey." The mother-in-law hurriedly agreed, and behind her, Lin Jiqing's eyes were already as sharp as knives. It seemed like he was going to lose his knife at any time. "Mom, look at what an expression Qingqing has." "I called you Mom, and she still doesn't want to." Chua didn't pamper Lin Jiqing at all, and directly exposed her. Lin Jiqing was stunned when her mother-in-law turned her way. She didn't expect Chu He to expose her. Then she put on a blank expression again. I said, Xingqing, you have to be nice to. Her mother-in-law turned her way again and asked Chu He, my dear, I haven't asked your name yet. Mom, I'm Chu He. Yes, you have to be nice to Chu He. He's young, so you have to let him off the hook more often. Did you hear that? Her mother-in-law's brow furrowed. I know. Lin Jiqing walked over and sat directly next to Chu He, hoping to regain control over him by drawing closer. But things did not go as Lin Jiqing wished. Chu He, who had entered her home, was like a kite with a broken string, completely free to do as he pleased. Moreover, Chu He did not mince his words in the slightest, answering his mother-in-law's inquiries with ease. In no time, the man in the kitchen brought up several plates of seasonal fruit. Let's eat the fruit, the man said emotionlessly. Thanks, Dad. Chu He tried again to test the man's reaction, but he still didn't respond. After cutting the fruit, he walked over to the side, sat down on a chair, and searched his pockets for a while, as if looking for something. No smoking. The mother-in-law immediately snapped at him, are you useless? You have to smoke when my son-in-law is here, and you can't even resist for a little while? Her commanding tone made Chu He, who was standing next to her, tremble. Is Teacher Lin's mother really so overbearing? It seems that my father has no status at all. In addition, it seems that the relationship between Teacher Lin and her family is very tense. She would rather sit next to me than next to my mother-in-law. This family is interesting. I'm sorry, but my mother-in-law smiled at Chu He again. Chu, eat some fruit. Chu He smiled and picked up the watermelon on the table and handed it to Lin Jiqing first. Sister Lin, you eat first. Lin Jiqing turned her head away, as if suppressing her anger, and said, I'm going back to my room first. Then she got up and went into her room, slamming the door behind her. Slamming the door in front of whom? Xiao Chu is still here, what's the point of going to your room? Do I owe you and your daughter? Seeing this, Chu He on the side quickly handed the watermelon to his mother-in-law, saying something to calm her down while indicating that he would take care of Lin Jiqing's side. His mother-in-law caught the watermelon and said to Chu He, that's good, go take a look at Xingqing's room and stay there tonight. Ha! Chu He had long expected this outcome, but when it came from his mother-in-law's mouth, he was still a little excited. Without lingering over the watermelon, he got up and went to Lin Jiqing's room. Fortunately, she hadn't locked the door, so Chu He twisted the handle and entered. After closing the door, Chu He saw Lin Jiqing sitting with her head down next to the bed, hugging a huge bunny doll. Her long, beautiful hair fell over her pale thighs. It looked very attractive. Chua seemed not to have seen Lin Jiqing like this. He deliberately said, Teacher Lin, was my performance okay? Hearing Chua's voice, Lin Jiqing suddenly looked up, her eyes red. Her thin lips moved, but she still didn't speak. Chua walked up to her and stroked her back. Teacher, if you want to cry, just cry. My shoulder is here for you. The two teacheress pulled Lin Jiqing out of her sad mood. It was obvious that she had been deeply hurt by this family. After rubbing her eyes, Lin Jiqing returned to her usual cold demeanor at school. Stay away from me. Although we are in my house, we are still teacher and student. Yes, teacher. And, take your hand off my back. Don't you feel something pop open? Sorry. Chu He retracted his hand, a completely subconscious action that he had become accustomed to in his previous life. Lin Jiqing tied the shoulder strap with a pale face. She really didn't know how to face this student of hers. Moreover, this student obviously didn't look like a student, but rather like an old hand who had been immersed in society for a long time. You will have to sleep on the floor for a while. Me? Sleep on the floor? Chu He was very surprised. Where do you want to sleep then? Lin Jiqing asked in return. Chu He smiled, teacher is so fragrant, of course I want to sleep in the bed. No way. Lin Jiqing's eyes were sharp, have you forgotten what you promised me? You can't think anything else about me. I don't have any other thoughts about you, but I'm not well, and the floor is too hard to sleep on, so I'll find it hard to get up the next day. Chu He lied off the cuff. I'll make the bed extra thick for you. The floor is too cold, and I sleepwalk easily when I sleep on the floor. You have that problem? Then I'll make it extra thick. Also, the floor is easy to. Chua's student. Chua hadn't finished speaking when Lin Jiqing interrupted him. I can't sleep on the floor anyway, and if I can't, I'll just ask our mother. Don't you dare. Hearing Chua threaten him with his mother, Lin Jiqing's eyes shot with anger. Hey, hey, Chua quickly sat down next to Lin Jiqing and said softly, I'll sleep on the left and you sleep on the right, okay? I can even protect you at night, teacher. Lin Jiqing turned her head, and the two of their faces came very close together. She now felt more and more like a lamb going into a tiger's mouth. I'll go take a shower first, you go to the closet and get a quilt to spread on the floor. After saying this, Lin Jiqing, with a flushed face, walked to the bathroom attached to the master bedroom, holding her pajamas. The sound of splashing water could be heard, and Shui glanced at Lin's soft big bed. Then he opened Lin's closet. In an instant, a faint fragrance came from the closet, and all of Lin Jiqing's clothes were in front of him. There were formal dresses, cheongsams, sportswear, and casual clothes. There were also several neatly folded layers of pajamas, some even with lace. No wonder the perverts in those little movies always like to collect these things. Chua muttered, and pulled open the drawer in the closet. Suddenly he saw Lin's underwear. The size. Chua only thought about it for a moment, and his nose started to run, and then his nose started to bleed uncontrollably. Chua hurriedly turned around to get the toilet paper on the bed, plugged his nose, and then continued to look for the quilt. Damn it, where did the teacher put the quilt? Chua searched for a while before discovering that the quilt was in the innermost corner. It was probably not used often, so it was placed in the innermost corner. After taking out some clothes that were blocking the closet, Chua took the quilt out from inside. Coincidentally, Lin Jiqing came out of the bathroom after taking a shower. Seeing the bed full of clothes and Shui with a nosebleed, she instantly shouted, Shui! Chapter 6 Teacher, I'm cold. Can we share the quilt? It was only normal for Chuhi, with a nosebleed, to be rummaging through a woman's wardrobe, and for Teacher Lin to have such a surprised reaction. Teacher, you're done bathing? Hearing Teacher Lin call to him, Chuhi sat in the pile of clothes, holding a quilt in his hands as he spoke to her. Seeing the messy clothes in Chuhi, who was full of lustful thoughts, Lin Jiqing suddenly felt aggrieved. With red eyes, she put on her pajamas and folded up the clothes that were scattered on the bed and put them back in the closet one by one. Seeing Lin Jiqing's red eyes, Shui froze for a moment. Then he immediately put down the quilt, stood up, and directly blocked in front of the busy Lin Jiqing, before Lin Jiqing could push him away. Chua then grabbed her hand and used his own hand to wipe away the tears from the corners of her eyes. Chua suddenly did this, and Lin Jiqing stared at him with round eyes, looking at him in surprise. At this moment, Chua embraced Teacher Lin in his arms. Lin Jiqing was surprised and tried to break free, but she was no match for Chua's strength. Chua! Lin Jiqing pouted, saying, we are just teacher and student, so don't keep crossing the line. He didn't say anything. He felt the wonderful curves of Teacher Lin beneath her thin pajamas, and a smile suddenly rose at the corner of his mouth. Lin Jiqing suddenly felt aggrieved because she had been suppressed by her family for too long, and he had messed up Teacher Lin's closet. This was the fuse that set off Teacher Lin's emotional explosion. If at this time you still foolishly ask, Teacher, why are you crying? Then how can you embrace a beauty? At this time, you can only stand firmly in front of her, give her support, and at the same time, gently soothe her with words. Only then can a woman who feels wronged feel infinite reliance in her heart. These judgments and things are not something a college student can do. This is a subconscious judgment based on Chuhi's experience of being a human being in two lives. But this warmth did not last long, because Lin Jiqing's mother-in-law walked over and opened the door. With a click, Lin Jiqing suddenly felt a burst of strength, and she sprang away from Chuhi like a spring. She played with her hair and pretended to be fine. It's late, you still have to go to work tomorrow, and Chu still has to go to school. Hurry up and get the quilt ready. The mother-in-law paid no attention to the two of them, just took off her slippers and went to bed, making up Chu's side of the bed. Then she moved the quilt Chu had taken out. It's so hot, just one quilt for the two of you. Mom! Lin Jiqing shouted. The mother-in-law didn't respond, walked out the door and smiled at Chu. Good night, son-in-law. And then she closed the door behind her. Good night. Seeing her mother-in-law being so well behaved, Chui didn't know what to say. Lin Jiqing was in a complicated mood. With only one quilt, was she really supposed to sleep under the same quilt as Chui? Then shall I go wash up first? Chui avoided the question for the time being. Lin Jiqing sat down on the edge of the bed with a wooden nod. In front of Lin Jiqing's face, Chui took off his shirt. His 8-pack abs appeared immediately, and Lin Jiqing, who had looked up, saw them at once. "What are you doing? Go to the bathroom and take it off." Lin Jiqing glanced at him, averted her eyes, and then glanced back again. "Did you hear me? Go to the bathroom and take it off." "Oh." Shui took his clothes and went to the bathroom. Lin Jiqing's face, along with the ears, turned red and hot, accompanied by the sound of rushing water in the bathroom. Lin Jiqing lay directly on her back on the bed. "Lin Jiqing, what are you doing? How did things suddenly turn out like this? How could I bring my student home? If my colleagues and leaders find out, what should I do? But student Chu does have a great body and is very strong. If... Ah." Lin Jiqing suddenly scratched her hair and muttered, "What am I thinking? He is my student and will only be my student." After saying that, Lin Jiqing spread the bedding on the floor on Shui's side. Then she picked up a copy of The Little Prince on the bedside table and absent-mindedly read it for a while. Shui came out while rubbing his head. Lin Jiqing calmed down and said to Shui, "I made your bed, so you can make do for one night." Shui glanced at the bed on the floor, but he seemed to have not seen it. He just said okay and took off his pants and lay down on the bed. Lin Jiqing kicked him. "Who told you to get into bed? And don't take off your clothes, you'll sleep in your pants tonight." "Shui? I'm here to help you, and this is how you treat me? Whoever wants to sleep on the floor can, I'm not serving you anymore." After saying that, Shui picked up his clothes and was about to leave the bedroom. Shui. Lin Jiqing panicked a little. If Shui really left, then there would be no one to accompany her in her acting. Upon hearing this, Shui laughed and came back. "Teacher, I knew you wouldn't want to part with me," he said, while throwing the pillow on the bed. "No way." Lin Jiqing still refused, but she didn't make any more moves. Shui just climbed onto the bed. Lin Jiqing then moved one of her 2 pillows to the middle. "You can't go past this pillow, otherwise you can go sleep wherever you want." Fine. Shui agreed, and Lin Jiqing covered herself with the quilt and turned her side. Shui lay on the bed, turned off the light, and went to pull her quilt again. "Shui, what do you want?" Shui looked innocent. "It's not that, teacher, our mother took my quilt away, and I don't have a quilt." In a panic, Lin Jiqing seemed to have accepted Shui calling our mother. "Then don't cover up." "No, I get cold at night, and if I don't cover up, I'll definitely catch a cold tomorrow." In the darkness, Lin Jiqing clenched her fists and lifted the quilt straight up. "You cover up, I won't." After that, she lay down with her back to Shui. Smelling the fragrance on the quilt, Shui said, "I'll cover up then, teacher, don't catch a cold." Lin Jiqing didn't say anything. The air vent of the central air conditioner was still blowing air outwards. After a few minutes under the quilt, Shui's breathing evened out. In the dark, Lin Jiqing twisted around. He really doesn't know how to cherish a woman. Lin Jiqing felt a little cold, so she had to grab a corner of the quilt, twist around, and go back to sleep. The moon in September is big and round. When the moonlight shines through the drawn curtains, you can see Shui's smile rising again at the corner of his mouth. Chapter 7. Teacher, please stop. I know all of this. Beautiful evenings are always so short. As the morning sun slowly shone into the bedroom, the pillow that Lin Jiqing had used to symbolize the boundary line was long gone. Under the quilt they shared, Shui had one leg draped over Lin Jiqing's thigh, and his hand was caressing her belly. It looked like he was about to make a move. Lin Jiqing, who was feeling drowsy, suddenly felt something pushing against her. A bold idea came to her mind, and she turned around, immediately seeing Shui, who was still asleep. Pop! A slap went up, directly waking Shui from his sleep. What happened? Shui sat up like Huai Min. Seeing Lin Jiqing, who had a fierce look in her eyes, he stretched and said, "Teacher, you're awake." Lin Jiqing's face turned red again, and she asked Shui, "What were you thinking?" Shui was confused by the question, and he scratched his head. "I've been sleeping the whole time, what could I have been thinking?" "Then why is your..." Lin Jiqing couldn't say it. Seeing Lin's flushed face, Shui suddenly thought of something, lifted the quilt to take a look, and sure enough, his second brother was very powerful. "Teacher, I'm only 18 years old, I'm full of blood and vigor, it's normal to be like this in the morning." "No, how did you know? Could it be that you..." Lin Jiqing panicked and immediately interrupted Shui, "I'm going to brush my teeth, you get dressed." After breakfast at Lin's house, she took her Mercedes back to school. However, to avoid unnecessary trouble, Lin Jiqing made Chu-hee get out of the car when they were still 1 kilometer from the school. They walked to school together, as today was the first day of class for first-year students. But for Chu-hee, those basic knowledge was already well known to him. Although he studied business, he had a keen interest in paleontology because of the good teachers he met at university. After graduation, he continued to study and care about the development of paleontology in his spare time. Thinking about entering the Xing building, he took the elevator to the 6th floor. 601, a class that can accommodate 40 people, was currently only occupied by Professor Wang. He was sitting with his legs crossed on the chair at the front of the class, drinking water and spitting the tea foam into the teacup. He was also holding a printed paper in his hands and constantly flipping through it. Professor Wang. Chua pushed open the door. Professor Wang looked at his watch. 8:02, Chua, you're 2 minutes late. If you're 2 minutes late, that means we're both 4 minutes late. Chua smiled and said as he sat in the front row, Professor Wang, you learned this method of timekeeping from your high school teacher, didn't you? Besides, you still read the paper even though I wasn't here, didn't you? Nonsense. Professor Wang also smiled, carefully placed the paper on the lectern, and then took out a professional book on structural geology from his briefcase. Let's begin the class. Chua nodded. Professor Wang waved the professional book. Class is in session. Professor, I left my book in the dormitory. I didn't go back last night and forgot to take it. Didn't go back? Where did you go? Don't pick up any bad habits, Chu-hee. Once you pick up bad habits, your grades and research will be like a carrot and a chicken, negligible. No, I just went to a friend's house, Chu-hee waved his hands. Okay, then read this. Professor Wang tossed a textbook over to Chu-hee. It doesn't really matter if you read it or not, because I made up part of it anyway, and I have everything in my head. With that, Professor Wang stood at the podium and started talking. Chu-hee, meanwhile, looked down and flipped through the book. Structural geology is a branch of geology that studies geological structures, mainly those formed by geological processes. Then he flipped further, and all kinds of technical terms popped up: tectonic view, rock strata, V-shaped law, flow splitting. But for Chu-hee, who had a photographic memory, all this was child's play. He closed the book and said to Professor Wang, Teacher, shall we talk about something more advanced? What is profound? Professor Wang was a little anxious when Chu interrupted him like this. I'm telling you, young people should be down to earth, take things one step at a time, and not compare yourself to others. You've already mastered the basics, so why talk about profound? Besides, what is profound? In my opinion, these basics. Before Professor Wang could finish his tirade, Chu interrupted, I've mastered everything. I said, I know all the basic knowledge in this book, let's talk about something more difficult. By saying this, Chu-hee was indeed trying to impress the professor. But it wasn't all an act. Chu-hee still had some advanced scientific research results from the next decade stored in his mind, which he wanted to use to accelerate the development of paleontology. However, the current cutting-edge research was somewhat disconnected from the future, so it was not yet the best time to use it. Just as Chu-hee was thinking this, Professor Wang took the book off Chu-hee's desk. Our expert group spent 3 years compiling this book. It may seem easy, but it is actually very profound. Many students need 2 semesters to master this book, so how can you possibly master it? Obviously, Professor Wang didn't believe a word of Chu-hee's. Let's test you, then, teacher. Fine. Professor Wang shook his head at the arrogant Chu-hee, then opened the book and prepared to dampen his enthusiasm. Professor Wang asked, what are the types of stratigraphic contact relationships? Seeing that the professor was asking such a simple question, Chu-hee didn't even hesitate and answered immediately. The sedimentary contact relationship between rock formations or strata refers to the relationship between groups and groups or 2 strata from different eras. It is a record of tectonic movement and geological development. Sedimentary contact relationships can basically be divided into 2 types, conformable contact and unconformable contact. Conformable contact refers to the contact relationship between old and new strata that are deposited continuously in parallel or nearly parallel, while unconformable contact refers to a clear sedimentary interruption or stratigraphic absence between the upper and lower sets of strata. Hearing Chu-hee answer so fluently, Professor Wang felt a moment of doubt in his heart. But then came a crazy joy of having found a treasure. Suppressing this joy, Professor Wang pretended to be calm. The answer is barely acceptable. Next. He asked Chu-hee a dozen questions in a row. He answered them all fluently, and the level of knowledge he called upon so fluently made Chu-hee look nothing like a freshman just starting college. Professor Wang also went from initial calmness to excitement. He didn't care that it was still class time, so he gathered his things and told Chu He to leave class. Chu He, teacher, it's only 8:30, can you please continue? Professor Wang pushed him away, saying that he was just about to share the news with his colleagues. You can leave class now, go play wherever you want. Chapter 8, Shocking the Paleontology World? After being expelled from the classroom by Professor Wang, Chu He didn't know where to go for a while. After just wandering around the teaching building, he happened to bump into Lin Jiqing, who had come out to get water. Chu He? Lin Jiqing frowned, don't you have a class this period? Skipping class? Lin Jiqing at school was completely different from the way she looked at home, with a cold expression on her face. The wrapped skirt she was wearing had also been replaced with a longer one. Together with the white shirt and black stockings, Lin Jiqing's air of being unapproachable was even more obvious. I said the professor ran away from class, do you believe me, teacher? What did you say? Lin Jiqing obviously didn't believe Chu He's excuse, and she was about to reprimand him when Chu He spoke again. Teacher, I'm the only student in my major, so even if I wanted to skip class, I couldn't. Lin Jiqing thought about it and realized that Chu He was right. The paleontology major was different from other majors. After all, he was the only one in his major, so how could he be allowed to skip class? So what did the professor do? I don't know, I guess I'm too smart for him to teach, so he gave up and ran away. Hearing what Chu He said, Lin Jiqing gave him a dirty look and then told him to follow her. The two of them came to the office, one in front of the other. Lin Jiqing took out a large thermos from under the desk. This is from my mom for you, drink it up by lunch today. From my mom? Why didn't she tell me in the morning? Lin Jiqing stared at Chu He fiercely, that's my mom. Classmate Chu, I'm your tutor and teacher. If you keep talking nonsense, I'll dock your credits. Chu He angrily shut up, then opened the thermos, and the fresh smell of crucian carp came to him. It's a carp and papaya soup, which nourishes the yin and replenishes the body. Why are you giving it to me? Lin Jiqing's eyes flashed with guilt when she saw Chu He immediately recognized the soup. How would I know what my mother was thinking? You can drink it if you like, or just throw it away. Just give me the bucket back this afternoon. Fine, then. Chu He picked up the bucket and stood still. You can go now. Lin Jiqing got ready to work. Chu He still didn't move. Is there anything else, Chu? Chua walked up and said, Teacher, if you kiss me, I'll go. Lin Jiqing slapped the table. Chua immediately carried the bucket and pulled open the door. Teacher, I'm leaving, don't miss me too much. He closed the door and, thinking about Lin Jiqing's reaction just now, felt that it was still far from the scene of the little movie he had imagined. Meanwhile, in the office, Lin Jiqing had already pulled up Chua's file. Chu He, male, 18 years old. Born on October 12, 1996 in Xiong City, father is a factory worker, mother is a teacher. This family is normal. Why is Chu He such a rogue? Lin Jiqing rested her head in her hands, not quite sure what to think. Babies, I'm home. On the other side, Chu He, who had nowhere else to go, kicked open the dormitory door. Wang Zibo, Sun Dajing and Wang Zibo were all covered in quilts, half sitting up as they looked at him. Brother Chu, where did you go last night? After being invited to dinner by Chu He's various teachers, the way Wang Zibo, Sun Dajing and Wang Zibo were addressed changed. Never mind that, just look at what good food I've brought you. Chu He opened the thermal container, and the fresh taste of the crucian carp once again filled the entire dormitory. Fish soup! Kong Dayang shouted, and then immediately gathered around the table, poking his bottom up and sniffing. It's carp, and it's got papaya in it, and it's been stewed in a casserole for at least 4 hours. Kong Dayang looked like he was in seventh heaven, as if he hadn't eaten in 3 years. He had Prince Bo and Sun Dajing both dumbfounded. Only Chu He knew Kong Dayang's face well. The boy had no other hobbies, just a taste for fish. Whenever he saw a dish with fish, his eyes would light up. In his previous life, Chu He had even suspected that the boy was a reincarnated cat. You guessed it right, it's the mukwa carp soup. Without Chu He's order, Kong Dayang ran to the cupboard and took out his own rice bowl. Chu He scooped him a bowl, without even using a spoon, and drank it from the bowl. Wang Zibo and the others saw him drinking so happily, and each took a bowl, but put it down after taking a sip. It's too greasy. Indeed, the ingredients are well used. If you won't drink it, I will. Kong Diang gulped down the entire thermos of fish soup like a cow drinking from a bucket, and then wiped his mouth, looking as if he hadn't had enough. It was so good. Wang Zibo. Chu good, don't you have an 8 o'clock class? Sun Dazheng suddenly realized this. Chu He had already taken off his shoes and was lying on the bed playing with his phone. He replied, my teacher ran off in the middle of class, saying that he had never seen a better student like me and couldn't teach me. Damn it. I don't believe it. Wang Zibo and Sun Dazheng both thought Chu He was bragging, but at that moment, Kong Diang had already gone to the bathroom to help Chu He wash the thermos. Speaking of our class, and even our major, I don't think there are many good-looking girls. Yes, I think the prettiest one is our counselor. She has fair skin, beautiful looks, and long legs. She is the ideal wife. Wang Zibo was daydreaming when Chu He threw a slipper at him. What? Zibo, you can pick any other girl you like, but the instructor is my wife, and you dare to covet her? Chu He said. Zibo felt that Chu He had not yet woken up. Sun Dazheng added, it is indeed Brother Chu's wife. It was announced at the class meeting, so how could it be false? He laughed heartily. This time Chu He didn't argue with anyone. He just lay flat on his back with his legs crossed, thinking to himself, stupid earthlings, when the truth is revealed, it will shock you to the core. Let's pack up and go. It's time for Dao Fei. Kong Dayang said as he returned from washing the thermos. Dao Fei is about morality and the rule of law, a freshman political science course. And this course is taught by their tutor and female political science professor, Lin Jiqing. After getting out of bed, Chu He and the others took their books and walked together to class. Ideological and political courses were always taught to several classes together, and most of them were taught in the lecture hall. In such a large classroom, with such a mediocre course, no one usually looked up, and most people were playing with their phones. But rarely was an ideological and political course taught by a counselor. There were still 10 minutes until class started, and there weren't that many people in Lecture Hall 105. They found a seat in the penultimate row, and the four of Chu He became heads-down students. What Chu He didn't know at this time was that in Zhao Laosher's office, the 6 teachers of paleontology had been in an emergency meeting for half an hour. But no matter how Professor Wang described Chu He's mastery of geological structures, the other 5 teachers remained skeptical. After all, it was common for a freshman who had just enrolled to review professional books in advance. But someone as comfortable as Chu He? There were almost none. After heated discussion, Professor Zhao decided, a comprehensive exam will show Chu He's true strength. If Chu He really can do it, their teaching plan will be completely disrupted. Professor Zhao even speculated that it could be the entire paleontology community that will be disrupted. Chapter 9 Teacher, can you make it up to me in the office? Okay, class, let's begin. At 9:40, Lin Jiqing walked quickly into the classroom with a folder in textbooks in her arms. Standing at the podium, she habitually glanced down. Seeing the listless appearance of the class, she frowned. Then she saw Chu He hiding in the penultimate row, his hands folded on the desk, looking like he was about to fall asleep. Lin Jiqing's anger flared up instantly. She was about to set an example by killing the chicken when she suddenly remembered that Chu He had woken up a bit too early today. After all, she had woken him up at 6:30. Lin Jiqing recalled the scene in the morning, and her ears instantly turned red. Ahem. She pretended to clear her throat and said without emotion. We are familiar with each other, so I won't introduce myself. Everyone turn to page 1 of your books. We will start with the introduction today. Lin Jiqing picked up the chalk and began writing the outline of the introduction on the blackboard. Most of the college students kept their heads down after reaching this point. Only a few male students kept their heads up, but they weren't looking at Lin Jiqing's chalkboard. Instead, they were staring at the black stockings on her legs. Teacher Lin is so pretty, and her body proportions are perfect. If we were to vote for the most beautiful girl on campus, I would definitely vote for the tutor. Isn't that right, guys? Which school has the most beautiful girl as a tutor? Then you tell me, apart from Teacher Lin, who else has such perfect looks? Okay, you two stop fighting. Teacher Lin's chalkboard writing is so white. No, Teacher Lin's legs are so chalkboard-like. 666, dude, I'm just looking at the legs, what does the chalkboard have to do with it? There was a flurry of discussion below, and Lin Jiqing, who had finished writing the frame, turned her head and saw that the vast majority of people had lowered their heads. As a teacher of ideological and political theory, she felt that this was normal. But Lin Jiqing was also their tutor. With this attitude towards learning on the first day of school, if this group of freshmen continued to develop in this way, what would become of them? She subconsciously glanced at Chu-hee and saw that he had already closed his eyes and was peacefully asleep. How could she tolerate such an attitude towards learning? How could he take the final exam like this? Chu-hee! Lin Jiqing shouted, and the whole class immediately looked up in shock. Many students even silently turned off their phone screens. Wang Zibo and Kong Dayang, who were sitting on either side of Chu-hee, were so scared that they sat up straight. But Chu-hee was sleeping very peacefully, as if he hadn't heard Lin Jiqing call his name at all. Shuge, Wang Zibo shook Chu-hee's arm, while Kong Dayang patted his thigh. It took 3 or 4 seconds of shaking before Chu-hee woke up from his sleep. He froze for a moment. Was class over? Let's go eat. The class was silent, and Chu-hee's 2 sentences reached everyone's ears. Under the pressure of Lin Jiqing's cold eyebrows, the crowd dared not laugh out loud, but only dared to sneakily laugh twice with their heads down. Wang Zibo covered his mouth and whispered, "No, the teacher called your name." Seeing Chu-hee's indifferent expression, and even chatting with the person next to him, Lin Jiqing's eyes burned even more fiercely. "You sit in the front row. Whoever plays with their phone or sleeps in class will be like him," Lin Jiqing said coldly. "Sit in the front row again." Chu-hee muttered, helplessly picked up his book and walked towards the front row. Putting down his book, Chu-hee didn't sit down directly, but walked slowly towards Lin Jiqing in full view of everyone, and whispered in her ear. "Teacher, I finished the fish soup, and you keep using me as an example to others. Can you compensate me tonight? Or if you punish me once, you can compensate me once. I think your office is not bad. Pop." Before Chu-hee could finish his sentence, Lin Jiqing slammed the eraser down on the desk. Chalk powder splattered everywhere, and when the sun shone into the classroom, you could still see the particles. Forget it. After flirting with his wife, Chu-hee obediently sat back in the front row, straightened his back, folded his hands on the desk, and stared at Lin Jiqing with determined eyes. "Let's continue the class." Lin Jiqing said these words with almost gritted teeth. She turned on the multimedia and used the PowerPoint to go through the slides one by one. But the scene just now had already caused a huge uproar in the hearts of the students. No, who is this guy Chu-hee? Why did the tutor remember his name? He must be on the tutor's blacklist. Look at the way the tutor is looking at him, like he wants to eat him. The tutor is so fierce, so pretty, and when she gets angry, she has a different kind of beauty. Didn't you guys see that? Just now, for a moment, the tutor's face flushed a little. What did Chu-hee just say to the teacher? Could it be that he molested the tutor? Are you stupid? The tutor is so cold and aloof. Usually, when I greet her in the hallway, she just gives a slight nod. How dare Chu-hee flirt with the tutor? That's true. After a while of discussing among themselves with their hands covering their mouths, Lin Jiqing skillfully went down the list of key points on the podium. This time, Chu-hee learned the lesson well. Every time Lin Jiqing spoke 3 sentences, he would nod slightly, as if he agreed. He even looked puzzled from time to time, but soon he would come to an epiphany. Seeing Chu-hee's attitude towards learning, Lin Jiqing was satisfied. This is what a motivated college student should be like. As a tutor, I should care about my students like this. Lin Jiqing brainwashed herself. Soon, the 90-minute lecture was over. After the lecture, Lin Jiqing was about to collect her books when she saw Chu-hee rushing out of the classroom with his dormitory mates. But just as they were about to leave, Lin Jiqing, for some reason, called out, "Chu-hee." Chu-hee, who was about to sprint, heard this and immediately patted his thigh. "Damn it, woman, you're slowing me down." "What did you say?" Lin Jiqing asked. "Nothing," Chu-hee said to Wang Zibo and the others, "you go ahead." Seeing that Chu-hee had been left behind again, the 3 of them naturally did not dare to linger in the face of the stern counselor. After whispering goodbye to the teacher, the 3 of them left the classroom like the wind. You listened very carefully in class. Lin Jiqing packed up her things and walked up to Chu-hee and said. Chu-hee smiled, "Miss Lin, this is what I should do as a student." "Then tell me, what did I talk about in class?" This. Chu-hee's attention was focused on flattery and observing Miss Lin's figure, so there was no time to pay attention to what she said. "Didn't listen, did you?" Lin Jiqing said, "Then you're punished to copy the introduction 10 times. Teacher, the introduction has more than 10,000 words, and copying it 10 times is 100,000 words. That's okay, the teacher will give you a week, and since your thoughts are impure, you can write more to purify them. Lin Jiqing gave a smile that was like a peach blossom blooming in an instant. Chapter 10 Academician Seeds. Damn it! Taking revenge for personal matters. Chu He wailed. Teacher, I don't need you to compensate me now, can I not write it? No, if you don't write it, I'll deduct your usual points. Lin Jiqing laughed. Does that mean that you're implicitly agreeing to compensate me once I write it? If it's not convenient at home, is the bathroom? Chu He. Lin Jiqing didn't expect him to joke at a time like this, then it'll be 15 times. You'll keep copying until you stop joking with your teacher. No, teacher, you're wrong. We're a legitimate couple. Hearing that the punishment had been increased again, Chu He couldn't help but cry out in protest. But Lin Jiqing didn't care about any of that. She turned her back on the class and walked out, only to turn back to Chu He and say, "Oh, yes. My parents won't be home tonight, so you don't need to sleep at my place." No, how do you know our mom won't make a surprise visit? Teacher, you have to be absolutely sure. And remember to write nicely. As the saying goes, there's nothing more poisonous than a woman's heart. In the cafeteria, Chu He was sullenly eating a bowl of chicken and rice. He had only teased her a little, but she had made him copy 150,000 characters of the introduction. Besides, isn't it normal for a couple to flirt with each other? Damn it! Chu He was indignant. Wang Zibo and Sun De, who were sitting next to him, exchanged glances and said, "Brother Chu, the teacher didn't do anything to you, did she?" "Nothing, she just made me copy the introduction 15 times. Chu He said nonchalantly. 10, 15 times. Kong DeYoung spat out the rice he had just put in his mouth. My goodness, how many characters are there in 15 times? Not many, a total of 153,425 characters. Chu He had already counted the characters after Lin Jiqing left. Can you finish copying it? Or? Sun Dazheng stopped mid-sentence. Chu He immediately looked up. Zhang, I know you mean well, but you can't copy it. I have to copy the punishment my teacher gave me myself. Wang Zibo looked at Chu He blankly. Brother Chu, you're not driving, are you? Arrest, you must arrest him. Kong DeYang added, the car almost ran me over. I said copy the introduction. Chu He said, copy the teacher. The three of them looked up, their eyes wide as saucers. The homework was given. The three of them's eyes dimmed, and Sun Dazheng hurriedly explained, no, what I meant was, go to Taba and find a ghostwriter. Xiao Zhang, 150,000 characters, find a ghostwriter. I'm afraid the customer service will not be able to help but scold you. Ha, the customer service is estimated to be stressed, who would be punished for copying 150,000 characters. Kong Dian laughed. Chuha gave him a dirty look. But he didn't plan to copy it either. Lin Jiqing only said this to let off steam, and even if he didn't copy it, he could probably get away with it by appeasing her. While the four of them were having a heated conversation, a message suddenly came on Chua's WeChat. He opened it and saw that it was from Professor Wang. Chu, come to our office this afternoon. We have a test paper for you to do. It seems that these teachers want to test my knowledge. Chu thought to himself. This test paper was probably jointly set by the 6 teachers. If he could do it, they would probably tailor a teaching plan for him. This also indicated that these teachers would probably teach him with the attitude of passing on cutting-edge talent for the development and inheritance of paleontology. He sent a message back saying that he had received it. Chua hurriedly finished eating all the leftover rice on his plate. After saying goodbye to Zibo and the others, Chua wanted to go first. He still had to go to the library to find other specialized books on paleontology. Although most of the knowledge was in his head, there was also some knowledge that was the focus of the university, but not useful in real practice. Chua had to pick up this knowledge. Hey, Chua, are you going to the club recruitment event tonight? A club? Shui shook his head, not really interested. The girls in the anime club and cosplay club will probably dress up really nicely tonight. Why don't you go take a look? Where is the meeting point for such trivial matters? Shui didn't return to the dormitory at noon, and stayed in the library until 2 o'clock. There was a large pile of professional books on the table, and he could have memorized the knowledge points originally, but they had just been idle for too long, so they needed a thread to pick them up. After more than an hour, Shui finally felt confident. He returned the books and left the library, heading straight for his teacher's office. He knocked 3 times and pushed open the door. Chua was shocked to see 6 professors gathered in the office. Even next to Zhao Laoshi, there was a girl standing. She was wearing a Hello Kitty white short-sleeved shirt that covered a quarter of her thighs. The super short jeans underneath were faintly visible, and under the cover of the short sleeves, only a small edge was slightly exposed. Her shapely thighs were like a work of art, and her proud breasts made the big head of Hello Kitty bow in an arc. She had a pair of peach blossom eyes and a kind smile hanging under her standard oval face. Chua greeted each of the teachers. Zhao Lao, sitting in the boss's chair, introduced to Chua, "This is Huang Jingyi, my master's degree student. I heard that you are very talented, and she wants to come and see." Huang Jingyi naturally reached out to Chu-hee to say hello. "Hello, junior." "Hello, senior. You're very pretty." Chu-hee took another look at Huang Jingyi. With a face and figure like that, and a girlish charm that was about to burst out, Huang Jingyi was only slightly inferior to Lin Jiqing, if not comparable to her. Why didn't I meet this beautiful graduate student of Zhao Lao's in my previous life? Chu-hee muttered. Huang Jingyi took a 10-page exam paper and handed it to Chu-hee. "Thank you, junior brother, for the compliment." "Oh, and I don't have a boyfriend yet, senior sister." Chu-hee. "Who asked you?" "You don't have a boyfriend, but I have a wife." Chu-hee said in his heart, but didn't say it out loud. After receiving the 10A4 paper printed exam papers, Chu-hee smacked his lips. "That's a lot?" "Right." Professor Wang handed Chu-hee a carbon pencil. "We'll all be here with you this afternoon, and you're not allowed to leave until you've finished." Chu-hee looked up at the professors sitting together on the sofa and then looked down at the exam paper. "Time is limited, so we've only picked out the most important knowledge to ask questions about. This is very difficult for undergraduates, and first-year students generally won't be able to finish this exam." The female professor in her 20s gently explained to Chu-hee, "Even some poorly educated postgraduates would only get a failing grade if they came across this exam paper. We won't make things difficult for you. If you pass this exam, we'll immediately revise the syllabus." Professor Wang immediately added, "By revise the syllabus, we mean that if you get it right, we'll train you as the successor to paleontology." "Academician? Me?" Chu-hee muttered. Chapter 11. Here, this is my wife. In the offices of the experts and professors, Chu-hee has been writing for half an hour. During this half hour, the office was so quiet that a pin could be heard drop. The amount of questions on this exam is huge, and an expert scholar who is familiar with the subject matter is estimated to need more than 2 hours to finish. And a graduate student interested in this major in paleontology is probably going to need more than 5 hours. As for undergraduates, the depth and cross-cutting nature of the knowledge on this exam is beyond what an undergraduate can do. Therefore, even though the professors had high hopes for Chu-hee, they were still prepared for the possibility that he would not be able to finish the exam. After all, Chu-hee was only a freshman, and it was only his first day of school. But what the professors didn't expect was that Chu-hee's hand had never stopped moving since the exam was handed out. The exam emphasized discussion and basic knowledge, and there were no questions that could be answered by guessing. But every question Chu-hee had written on was filled to the brim. And he has now reached page 5. The professors' hearts are pounding, but they don't show it. It's not until an hour and a half later that Chu-hee says, "I'm done." It's then that the impatient Professor Wang takes the lead in taking away Chu-hee's exam paper and quickly skimming it. Professor Liu and the other professors also gather around to carefully judge Chu-hee's answers. After a cursory glance at the exam paper, Professor Wang and the other professors put it on Zhao Laoshi's desk together. "Laoshi, take a look." Although Professor Wang's voice remained calm, the excitement in his eyes was about to overflow. Laoshi put on his reading glasses, took the red pen on the desk, and corrected Chu-hee's answers word by word. But his red pen did not fall for a long time, because Chu-hee's basic knowledge was so solid that there was nowhere to correct. With a strong emotion in his heart, Zhao Lao took off his reading glasses and said to Chu-hee, "Well done, Chu-hee. We have a concrete understanding of your overall level. How about this, class is over for today, you can go and play." Chu-hee looked at it and realized that he was being told to go. He was confident in the exam paper. He knew that the professors didn't want to let him get a big head, so they didn't want to show too much reaction in front of him. Chu-hee sighed inwardly, "Can't you praise yourself in front of me, it's so fulfilling." But Zhao Lao and the professors obviously didn't think like that. So Chu-hee could only get up and say goodbye to Zhao Lao and the professors. Then he pushed the door and left. At this moment, the originally serious professors began to discuss enthusiastically. Zhao Lao, we've found a gem. A freshman can be at this level, I think we should let him go straight to graduate school? The average graduate student is not as good as Chu He. I'm really curious about how his brain is developed. The enthusiasm of the professors was high, and so was Zhao's mood. After so many years of studying paleontology, he knows that humans know very little about these creatures that have existed for hundreds of millions or even billions of years. Advancing the development of paleontology has been his lifelong pursuit. Now Zhao is over 60 years old, and he has encountered a talent like Chu Yi, so how can he not be happy? Xiao Chu is a genius in paleontology research, we must not let him go. This exam paper contains questions set by all of you, and you know very well how difficult they are. This exam paper, which even we need more than 2 hours to answer correctly over 95% of the time, Chu Yi completed in just 1.5 hours. What kind of expert knowledge is required to achieve this? I suggest that you all work overtime tonight. For a talent like Chu He, we should report to the school and revise the teaching plan. I don't know how the professors feel, but Chu He, who was once again thrown out of the classroom before the end of the class, felt the confusion of a university student for the first time. Alas, I really envy normal college students. Even attending classes normally has become a luxury for me. Chua Versailles a mouthful. Then he walked towards Lin's office. People like Lin are so interesting. They obviously have feelings and emotions, but they force themselves to suppress them and act in a twisted way. It must be very interesting to tease a teacher like this. While thinking about this, Chu Yi walked, but just as he reached the door to Teacher Lin's office, the graduate student of the old Zhao, Huang Jingyi, called out to him from behind. Junior brother Chu He. Chu Yi turned his head back and saw Huang Jingyi's head tilt slightly, smiling at him. Huang Jingyi's smile seemed to have a magical charm that would make any man's heart pound. But Chu He, who had experienced a lot, immediately saw the woman's evil ways. On Earth, this type of woman generally has a common name, and it's called green tea. As Chu Yi was squinting at Huang Jingyi, she walked up quickly. She casually tousled her hair and said to Chu Yi with a smile, "Ouch, little brother Chu, you're walking so fast that I can't keep up with you." Chu Yi kept his composure, but deliberately lowered his head to give Huang Jingyi the impression of a pure young man. "You enchantress, I'd like to see what tricks you have up your sleeve." Sure enough, Huang Jingyi's heart instantly blossomed when she saw Chu Yi's bashful expression. Male college students like this who are bashful generally have almost zero emotional experience, but they still long for a sweet romance. At this time, once a girl rushes up to him and shows enthusiasm a few times, he will quickly fall for her and become her lapdog. The reason Huang Jingyi is attracted to Chu Yi is, of course, because he is exceptionally talented and highly valued by Master Zhao. If nothing goes wrong, Chu Yi may even become Zhao Lao's personal disciple. With the professors teaching him everything they know, Huang Jingyi feels that Chu Yi really has the potential to achieve something in his research. Even if he doesn't, it's fine, because he'll have an eager-to-please junior to serve him. The professors just praised you so much. Huang Jingyi said with a smile, "Junior, you're amazing. I'm a bit in awe of you." Chua still kept his head down, but in his heart he was already mocking him. What a low-level trick, I really look down on male students. But he continued to pretend on his lips, "No." Huang Jingyi reached out and stroked Chua's cheek, and slowly lifted it, forcing Chua to look at him. Normally, this kind of introverted male student would absolutely not dare to look at him. Not only did she do this, but she also leaned closer to Chua and said slowly, "Does the younger student have a girlfriend?" Compared to the previous move, this one is even more disgusting. Her breath hit Chu Yi's face, and I don't think any innocent college boy could resist. "No," Chu Yi said, looking at the closed office door next to him, "but I have a wife." "What did you say?" Hearing this, Huang Jingyi laughed. Then she used both hands and pinched Chu Yi's face directly. "Junior brother, you mean a wife from the second dimension, right? What's her name?" While the two of them were talking closely, they heard a click and the office door opened. Lin Jiqing was holding a teacup and was about to go get some water when she looked surprised at the scene at the door. Huang Jingyi was standing next to Chu He, and their faces were almost touching. It looked like a couple about to kiss. For a moment, Lin Jiqing's heart skipped a beat. When Chu Yi saw Lin Jiqing come out, he immediately came up to her and put his arm around her, saying, "Here, this is my wife." Chapter 12, Teacher Lin, you don't want your husband to have an affair, do you? When he said this, Lin Jiqing and Huang Jingyi were both stunned for a moment. An inexplicable feeling of joy welled up in Lin Jiqing's heart, but it was more of a feeling of panic. It was the panic of being caught cheating. "What are you talking about? I'm your teacher." Lin Jiqing frowned. Huang Jingyi was even more surprised. In her understanding, no innocent man would dare to do such a thing, and she couldn't believe that he had publicly said that his teacher was his wife. How dare Chuyi do such a thing? She looked at Chuyi with some surprise in her eyes, because his actions had gone far beyond her control. Well, that is, junior brother, Huang Jingyi stuttered a little, senior sister still has something to do, she has to go first. We can talk about it later. After saying that, Huang Jingyi lifted her long legs and instantly ran out of sight. Hey, sister, we haven't added WeChat yet, why are you running? Chuyi launched a fatal blow at the back of Huang Jingyi's head. Lin Jiqing looked at the hallway and saw that no one was there, so she grabbed Chuyi by the ear and carried him to her office. After slamming the door shut, Lin Jiqing leaned her back against the office door and stared at Chuyi with sharp eyes. Who told you to say that? We're just getting married for show, so how can you say in front of other people that I'm your wife? Lin Jiqing was wearing a light blue shirt and didn't have her gold-rimmed glasses on, but she still had a very imposing presence. Chuyi was grinning from ear to ear. It's okay, Huang Jingyi is such a green tea drinker that she won't believe it. All she'll think is that I'm using you to get out of it. Why? Because what normal person would think of marrying their student? Teacher Lin, you really are both wise and brave. Lin Jiqing immediately heard Chuyi's implied criticism, so she picked up his ear again. Ouch, ouch, where did you learn such unhealthy things, teacher? How can you pick my ear? It makes me lose face. You still want face? Lin Jiqing let go of Chuyi's ear, hugged her chest and asked, it's a professional class in the afternoon, why are you in the hallway again? Didn't the professor think you were too smart again? Congratulations, professor, you guessed it right. Chuyi rubbed his ear while answering. This time Lin Jiqing didn't say anything, she was determined to expose Chuyi's lie. So she walked straight to the desk, picked up her phone and called Professor Wang. After confirming what Chuyi said was correct, she then changed her expression. I told you, why would I lie to Teacher Lin? Chuyi sat down in a chair by himself. Your husband is a genius, you have to learn to accept it slowly. Don't use those two names, Lin Jiqing surveyed Chuyi. Well, there's no one else here, so I can't even satisfy my oral desires, said Chuyi. With the professor's guarantee, Lin Jiqing didn't hold Chuyi back for skipping class, and instead asked. Who was that girl just now? Chuyi froze for a moment, stared at Lin Jiqing and just smiled. What are you smiling at? Answer me. Teacher, are you jealous? Chuyi asked with a smile. Nonsense, you are my student. I don't think that girl is a good person. Am I not supposed to remind you to behave yourself? No. 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 Chuyi shook his head. Teacher, you are crossing the line by meddling in my private life. But there's nothing I can do about it. Who could resist a handsome and intelligent guy like me? Girls love me wherever I go. Lin Jiqing gave Chuyi a cold stare. She had a hard time taking this rogue seriously, who didn't even look like a college student. Teacher, you're right to be jealous. Only by holding on to me tightly will I not let my heart be pulled away by someone else. Now, give me a kiss. Chuyi said this and pouted his lips, waiting quietly for Lin Jiqing to kiss him. Lin Jiqing pushed Chuyi away and muttered, rascal. Chuyi smiled slightly at being rejected a kiss, as expected. I need to work, so go out. Go where? Go wherever you like, just don't disturb me here. Then I'll go back to our home. Chuyi smiled and revealed his true colors. Lin Jiqing was stunned again, and then her fierce light revealed itself. What do you mean our home? That's my home, I already told you, my mom isn't coming tonight, you don't need to go. Chuyi played the rogue, then I'll just stay here, I don't have anywhere to go anyway, it's not bad to be able to see your wife here. Pop. Lin Jiqing could only bang the table again and again to intimidate him. You are not allowed to go to my house, and you are not allowed to disturb me at work here. Then I will go find the young lady, Chuyi said as he got up. Teacher Lin, you don't want your husband to have an affair, do you? You. Lin Jiqing was so angry that her breasts rose and fell, and a blush spread across her face. Chuyi pretended to leave, but his hand quickly reached for the bag on the hanger. The key is in it, I'll go home first and cook for you, oh, Teacher Lin. He easily took out the key from his pocket, he had been there when Lin Jiqing had put it there. Chua! Chua! Lin Jiqing tried to stop him, but he had already escaped from Lin's office as quickly as a loach. In the office, Lin Jiqing was left alone, clenching her fists and pounding on the table. Rascal! Rascal! How could I have found such a rascal to pretend to be my husband? Lin Shicheng regretted her decision, but she couldn't help but think. He said he would cook for me, and this kid can do that? It doesn't sound so bad to come home every day and have ready-made meals. Thinking of Chuhi in an apron, holding a spatula, stirring in the kitchen, and when she gets home from work, he says, "Hi, honey, I'm home. Dinner's ready, your favorite, scrambled eggs with tomatoes." Lin Jiqing's face turns red again. No, Lin Jiqing, he's your student. The afternoon passed quickly. Lin Jiqing, who had finished work for the day, met another woman, Wang Xiaoman, in the hallway. This was her postgraduate classmate. After graduation, Lin Jiqing went on to do a PhD, while Wang Xiaoman went straight to work as a tutor at the University of Geology. Lin Jiqing loved and hated Wang Xiaoman at the same time. During postgraduate school, Wang Xiaoman took good care of her, often helping her fend off the boys who were courting her. But at the same time, Wang Xiaoman is also very gossipy. She really can't understand why Lin Jiqing, who was so popular with the opposite sex back then, has still not married, and has never even had a boyfriend. Jiqing, when are you going to get married? Wang Xiaoman whispered as she walked downstairs with Lin Jiqing, adding, "Some people are even saying that you're in a relationship with a student." Upon hearing this, Lin Jiqing felt like she had been electrocuted, and stared at Wang Xiaoman, who was spreading this. This is slander. I haven't even been in a relationship, so how could I be with a student? Wang Xiaoman stroked Lin Jiqing's back knowingly. Okay, I know you better than that. You definitely wouldn't do that. Chapter 13, Teacher Lin, lace pajamas, dinner. But you have to hurry up too. You're already 29 years old this year. It's really not easy for a woman to find a partner after she turns 30. Wang Xiaoman kindly advised. I know, just stop nagging about this. Lin Jiqing was wondering who was spreading this rumor and she was annoyed. People are just curious. Wang Xiaoman stopped and looked around to make sure no one was listening before reaching out and touching Lin Jiqing's soft, big breasts. Lin Jiqing took a suspicious step back. What are you doing? I have no problem with my sexual orientation. Wang Xiaoman laughed, with a face and body like yours, logically speaking, any man would drool when they see you. How come no one is after you? What a waste, let me feel for them first. Lin Jiqing hurriedly interrupted, Okay, let's go home quickly. I still have things to do. What could you possibly have to do? You're all alone. My husband has a business dinner tonight, so why don't I go to your house for dinner? No way. Lin Jiqing hastily refused. At this time Chuhi was cooking at her house. If I really let Wang Xiaoman go, it would be exposed. What's wrong? I've been to your house for dinner before. Wang Xiaoman sensed something unusual about Lin Jiqing and asked suspiciously, could it be that you're keeping a gigolo at home? No way. Lin Jiqing's eyes darted around, leaving her with the words, you can't go anyway. Then she quickly walked downstairs in her high heels. Hey, why? Qingqing, wait for me. Inside 1201 Xinha community, Chuhi was smelling the braised pork. It smells so good, and it's still me. After transferring the braised pork from the pot to the plate, Chuhi looked at the table full of red and green dishes and couldn't help wiping the sweat from his forehead. Success. At that moment, the sound of the key turning in the door came. Lin Jiqing, carrying her bag, changed her high heels for slippers, and then she smelled a fragrance. My dear, you're home, dinner is ready. Chuhi sat proudly at the table, his apron still on. Seeing the delicious-looking dishes on the table and Chuhi, who was wearing an apron and smiling, Lin Jiqing suddenly felt like a dream had come true. He didn't even argue with her about her title as wife. She couldn't believe that she could also live a life where thousands of lights shine, and one of them is for you. Her eyes couldn't help but turn a little rosy, so she said softly, I'll go change. Then she quickly went into the master bedroom, so that Chuhi wouldn't see her emotional changes. Seeing Lin Jiqing's expression, he was not at all surprised. This woman must have been moved. Who doesn't want others to be nice to them? At 30, she is still a woman. Just as Chuhi sighed with emotion that he had taken another step in his strategy to win Lin Jiqing over, Teacher Lin came out wearing a black lace nightgown. It had straps, revealing her white thighs, and lace embellishments on her chest and legs. Chuhi instantly felt like he was going to have a nosebleed. Damn! This woman is really sexy. Shuhua sighed. At the same time, a strong wind suddenly blew outside the window. The window was whistling. The sky was covered with dark clouds, and it looked like it was going to rain heavily. It's going to rain, Lin Jiqing said, looking a little worried. What's there to be afraid of in the rain? Let's eat, teacher. Shua deliberately called her teacher, but his hands went to serve Lin Jiqing some rice. After receiving the rice, Lin Jiqing sat down across from Chu He, her brows slightly furrowed. Chu He pretended not to see, and kept adding things to Lin Jiqing's bowl. Lin Jiqing took a bite, and a sense of instinctive joy at eating a delicacy welled up in her. She whispered, "Don't call me teacher at home in the future." What? Chu He heard this clearly, but pretended not to. You're doing it on purpose, aren't you? Lin Jiqing said, I'm much older than you, so you can just call me sister. Okay, Auntie Lin. Chua. Lin Jiqing clenched her teeth and punched Chua in the chest with a closed fist, but she obviously held back the force, making it look like she was flirting. Got it, sister. Chua smiled. At that moment, Lin Jiqing saw the smiling Chua and suddenly felt a beam of light enveloping him, causing him to shine. Let's eat. After we finish, I'll take you back to school. Ha! You're killing the goose that lays the golden eggs. I worked so hard cooking, does that mean I don't even have the qualifications to live here? No. Although Lin Jiqing refused with righteous words, in the end, she did what Chui wanted. Because they had just finished eating for 5 minutes, it started pouring outside the window. From time to time, there were also 2 thunderclaps. Amidst the thunder, Chui noticed something interesting. Every time there was a flash of lightning, Lin seemed to be under control, unable to eat with her bowl in her hand. And when the thunder roared, she would shiver, looking very scared of the thunder. Chui had thus discovered the next way to approach Lin, but it was not the time to implement it. After finishing eating, the sound of rain temporarily subsided. According to the rules of the couple, one person cooks and the other person washes the dishes. Although Chu He and Lin Jiqing have not yet become husband and wife, they have already accepted this rule. After dinner, Chu He lay on the sofa watching TV in a relaxed position, while Lin Jiqing expressionlessly tidied the table and kitchen. For a moment, Chu He even felt like he had returned to the time before his rebirth, when he was being taken care of by a nanny. Coincidentally, the nanny in his previous life also had the surname Lin. Lin Ma, bring me a basin of water later, I want to wash my feet. Chu He deliberately teased Lin Jiqing. What? Lin Jiqing, who was busily scrubbing the dishes in the kitchen, didn't seem to hear what he said. Chu He quickly added, nothing. But after finishing the dishes, Lin Jiqing still brought a basin of water from the bathroom. Chu He looked at Lin Jiqing in surprise. Teacher, you heard it, didn't you? Hear what? Lin Jiqing did not admit it. Hurry up and wash up, go to bed early after you're done. Tomorrow I need to be at school at 7 a.m. to check on the students. Check on the students? Check on the boys' dormitory? Chu He asked. What are you doing? Are you going to tip off the boys? Lin Jiqing asked. No. Chu He denied, but in his heart he muttered, no way, I'm not going to tip them off. The idiot Sun Dajing wakes up early every day to go for a run, and before running, he insists on washing his hair with cold water and then drying it with his hairdryer. It's trivial that Sun Dajing was caught by Lin Jiqing, but it's a big deal that his hairdryer was confiscated. Of course, the mastery of Sun Dajing's habits was still achieved in the previous life. After all, Chu He has not lived in a dormitory in this life yet. He has stayed at Lin Jiqing's house for 2 days since the start of the semester. Chua thought to himself while resting his feet in the water. But then he screamed and pulled his feet out. It's hot. Lin Jiqing looked at him with a smile. Is it hot? Lin's mother thought it was just right. Teacher, so you heard. Chapter 14, Passionate Morning Kiss. It was raining lightly on a rainy night. After washing his feet, Chui wiped them while informing his roommates on his phone. Chui, silly dogs, the dormitory supervisor will inspect the dormitory tomorrow and collect any violations. Wang Zibo, in particular, you must hide the cups. Wang Zibo, slander. What cups are you talking about? Chua, the cups used for flying. Kong Deyong, 666. Sun Dajing, 666. Chua, Dajing and you, tomorrow morning, bear with it, don't use the hairdryer yet, so as not to get caught. Sun Dajing, Ajk. Chua, there were a lot of girls at the club tonight, it's a pity you didn't come. Chua, it is indeed a pity, I'll go again tomorrow night. Wang Zibo, so, Brother Chu, you're staying out again tonight. Kong Deyong, yes, Brother Chu, are you staying out with a young girl? Chui, I'm staying at the tutor's house. She was hugging me and said that she would be checking the dormitories tomorrow, so she asked me to give you guys a heads up. Zibo Wang, I don't believe you. Kong Deong, if you're staying at the tutor's house, I'll eat all of Zibo's poop. Zibo Wang? Chuhua, you're lying, aren't you? I'll stop talking now, the tutor told me to sleep with her. After venting his anger, Chuhi didn't pay any more attention to the three sand sculptures' comments. He turned off his phone and turned to go to the master bedroom to sleep. At this time, Lin Jiqing, who was still sitting on the sofa reading, stopped him and said, "Where are you going?" "I'm sleepy, I want to go to bed." Chu He said. Lin Jiqing put down her book and pulled Chu He into the second bedroom. "You'll be staying here tonight, and since my mom's not here, why would you want to share a bedroom with me?" Lin Jiqing said, "I'm afraid." "Stop. Are you going to say something about being afraid of the dark at night and not being able to sleep alone again?" Lin Jiqing said, "These tricks don't work anymore. Either you sleep in the second bedroom, or you sleep on the sofa, you choose." Seeing Lin Jiqing's resolute expression, Shuhi had no choice but to go into the second bedroom. "Lin's sister, then don't miss me at night." Bang! Lin Jiqing slammed the door of the second bedroom. "Who would miss you?" Lin Jiqing muttered, then pulled the living room light back to the master bedroom. The night grew darker and darker. At 1 o'clock in the morning, the light rain that had stopped turned into a heavy downpour. The raindrops, the size of beans, were hit by the wind and hit the window at an angle, making a cracking sound. From the dark clouds, the sound of thunder could be heard from time to time. At this moment, Shu He, who was sleeping in the second bedroom, suddenly heard a muffled thud. It sounded like something had fallen to the ground. What was that noise? Chua lifted the quilt and got up, quietly observing the movements around him. Amidst the crackling sound of rain, there seemed to be the sobbing of a woman. "This room can't be unclean, can it?" A cold sweat broke out on Chua's forehead. After listening carefully, he suddenly felt that the sobbing sound was like that of Teacher Lin. Without hesitation, and without even having time to put on his pants, Chua pushed open the door to the second bedroom in his boxers and rushed to the door of the master bedroom. He listened through the door and sure enough, the sobbing came from inside. He immediately unscrewed the door, and at the same time, a lightning bolt happened to strike, lighting up the master bedroom. In the flash of light, Shui saw Lin Jiqing curled up in the corner by the window with bare feet, her long hair scattered on her chest, and her body still shaking. "Lin Xiaojia, are you okay?" Shui asked, then rushed directly to Lin Jiqing's side and crouched down. In the darkness, Lin Jiqing looked up, then suddenly threw herself into Chui's arms and burst into tears. Outside, the thunder roared, and inside, Lin Jiqing's body continued to tremble. The thunder was mixed with the sound of crying. Shui didn't know why she was so afraid of thunder, but he still unswervingly stayed by her side. The two of them just hugged for 10 minutes, and Lin Jiqing gradually calmed down as she felt the warmth of Chui's body. But her expression was still lost, as if she had lost her soul. It took a while to coax her into bed and go to sleep. But at this time, Lin Jiqing instinctively held Chui's hand like a child, not letting him go. In the thunderstorm and rainy night, Chui held Lin Jiqing sideways. Lin Jiqing huddled in his arms and fell asleep slowly after a long time. The autumn rain came and went in a hurry. The next morning, the only things left to prove that it had rained were the water droplets on the leaves and the puddles on the ground. In the bedroom, Lin Jiqing, who had long since developed a biological clock, opened her eyes at 6:30. Shui's company throughout the night had long since calmed her down. Shui's warm embrace allowed Lin Jiqing to let her emotions flow for the first time. But at the same time, it also released the love that had long been shelved. Lin Jiqing turned her head and carefully observed Shui's sleeping face. His eyes were quite big, his nose was relatively straight, his lips were also quite thin, except that his skin was a little yellowish. As she watched, Lin Jiqing suddenly felt her heart beating passionately. Facing this young man who was more than 10 years younger than her, Lin Jiqing felt for the first time a clear feeling that she wanted to be together all the time. Almost instinctively, Lin Jiqing half sat up and, while Chuhi was asleep, stole a kiss on his cheek. Chuhi didn't wake up, but his eyelashes twitched slightly. "He's sleeping pretty soundly, I'll kiss him on the lips, he shouldn't wake up." After a round of cheek probing, Lin Jiqing slowly kissed Chuhi on the lips again. When the two lips met, a huge instinctive satisfaction rushed from her calves to her head. It made Lin Jiqing's body feel numb, and she couldn't help but exclaim, "His lips are so soft." Afraid that Chuhi would wake up, Lin Jiqing only kissed for a second or so, and then tried to pull away, but at that moment, a pair of strong hands suddenly embraced her waist. With a slight force, she was made to look up and down at Shuhei, with their cheeks less than 2 centimeters apart. Lin Shijie, did you secretly kiss me? Shuhei said to Lin Jiqing as they looked at each other. Lin Jiqing tried to break free, her cheeks rapidly flushing, her ears burning terribly. No, no. Before she could finish speaking, Shui's hand around Lin Jiqing's waist tightened again, and the two's lips kissed together once more. At first, Lin Jiqing slapped Shui's hand away, but as Shui grew more serious, Lin Jiqing slowly stopped resisting. After just 5 seconds of kissing, Shui's hands, which had nowhere to go, started to get restless. Starting from Lin's belly, his 2 hands moved, one slowly upwards and the other slowly downwards. At this moment, Lin Jiqing's heart was about to jump out of her throat. When Shui's hand was about to reach the key position, Lin Jiqing grabbed his hand and shook her head, saying, "No, don't." Chapter 15, Teacher Lin can drive? Forcing herself out of Shui's embrace, Lin Jiqing quickly got up and tidied the lace pajamas that Shui had almost taken off. At this time, her face was already as red as the emoji of the great general. Shuhei, who was still lying in bed, looked at Lin Jiqing, who had gotten up at a critical moment, and said discontentedly, "Lin's sister, you're playing with fire." Lin Jiqing didn't know what to say, and just embarrassedly tousled her hair. "Get up first, I'll go buy you breakfast," Lin Jiqing said after a moment of silence, sitting down by the bed. "I can't get up right now," Shui said honestly. "Why not?" Lin Jiqing didn't understand. Just a kiss, how could he not get up? Shui smiled wickedly, "Because you've aroused my desire, teacher." Lin Jiqing thought Shui was joking with her again, but then thought about what happened early yesterday morning. And it was a little uncomfortable just now. Lin Jiqing's mind went blank. "Teacher, you know, I'm not wearing any pants, but if you don't mind, I can get up, or we can finish what we didn't finish just now." "Okay." Shui's words were not finished when Lin Jiqing interrupted him. You lie back, I'll go buy you breakfast." After that, he took out a tracksuit from the closet and prepared to go to the second bedroom to change. "Teacher, calm down a bit, your face is as red as a monkey's bottom." "Shut up." Half an hour later, Lin Jiqing had placed all the soy milk, fried dough sticks, xiaolongbao dumplings, and tofu pudding she had bought on the table. Chua also changed his clothes and came out, sitting opposite Lin Jiqing. "I don't know what you like to eat, so I bought all this." Lin Jiqing placed her hands on the table, but kept her head down and didn't dare to look at Chua, as if she had done something wrong. Seeing Lin Jiqing's coy appearance, Shui couldn't help but smile, but he still wanted to tease her a little. "What's wrong, Lin's sister? Why are you afraid to look at me? Did you put drugs in the breakfast? Don't be ridiculous." Lin Jiqing still kept her head down. Shui understood her reaction very well. Usually, couples are a little bashful after the first kiss, and they skip the preliminaries like holding hands and hugging, and go straight to the kissing. But Miss Lin shouldn't be like this. She's already 29 years old. Has she never had a boyfriend before, never kissed before? "Miss Lin, you've never kissed anyone before?" Shui asked with a smile, picking up a steamed dumpling with his chopsticks. Lin Jiqing didn't say a word. She was about to turn 30, but she was still acting like a shy young girl. She was no match for a young man just starting university. Chua bit into the pork and scallion xiaolongbao, and the aroma instantly filled his mouth. "Don't call me an old auntie." Hearing Chua say this, Lin Jiqing only suddenly looked up and looked at Chua's smiling face. "That's right, Lin Yang, it was just a kiss, nothing." Lin Jiqing picked up another pair of chopsticks in a bad mood, opened a portion of tofu brain, and stared at Chua with her eyes fixed. "So, you've kissed a lot of girls before, right?" Pop. Shui's chopsticks fell onto the table. Indeed, women of all ages are women, and they all have the extremely keen ability to be jealous. "I'm only a freshman, where would I know about this? I only learned from watching TV dramas," said Shui. In fact, he wasn't lying. After all, in this reborn world, Shui was still a blank piece of paper. After finishing breakfast, it was only 6:40. Lin Jiqing took Shui to school, which was still a kilometer away, and Shui was once again mercilessly abandoned by Teacher Lin by the roadside. Teacher Lin was busy checking the dormitories and repeatedly emphasized that Shui was never allowed to tip off Wan Zibo and the others. But Lin Jiqing didn't know that Shui had already completed this task last night. Running all the way, Shui dashed into the school and ran to the bottom of the boys' dormitory. At this time, Lin Jiqing was chatting with Wang Xiaoman in front of the boys' dormitory. "It's so annoying, having to do dormitory checks in the morning. It's painful for the students, and it's painful for us too. I really don't know what the leaders are thinking. Wang Xiaoman complained, hugging her arms. Lin Xiqing comforted Wang Xiaoman, "It's fine, you're not being asked to do it every day, it won't get in the way of your big event with your husband." My big event with my husband? Wang Xiaoman laughed and gave Lin Xiqing's small waist a little twist. I didn't realize that beautiful teacher Lin Xiqing also drove. Lin Xiqing was taken aback. What are you talking about? I'm talking about walking your daughter Lin to school. Ah? Oh, so that's what you were talking about. Wang Xiaoman smiled embarrassedly. Hello, Miss Lin. While Lin Jiqing and Wang Xiaoman were chatting, Shui arrived at the dormitory building out of breath. There was no class until 8 a.m., so he really had nowhere else to go. Lin Jiqing was also taken aback when she saw Chu. She had only dropped him off a kilometer away a few minutes ago, so how did he manage to catch up so quickly? She was surprised, but Lin Jiqing still put on a cool face. Are you going to the cafeteria for breakfast? Chua was stunned for a moment. Am I going to the cafeteria for breakfast? Oh, yes, I just finished breakfast. Not only did I eat breakfast, I also kissed my girlfriend. Chua said with a smile. Lin Jiqing's face turned red, but she quickly calmed down. Go up and rest for a while. Okay, goodbye, Mr. Lin. Chua quickly went upstairs. Is this your student? Wang Xiaoman pointed at Chu He, who was going upstairs. This kid is so strange. Does he have to tell his tutor about kissing his girlfriend? Cough cough. Lin Jiqing coughed twice uncomfortably and said to Wang Xiaoman, let's go. We'll check on the students in our major first, and the other tutors will probably be here soon. Wang Xiaoman nodded with a puzzled look, and followed Lin Jiqing into the boys' dormitory building. While the two tutors were checking the dormitory, Chu He had already quickly walked to the dormitory door. He kicked open the door with a bang. Unexpectedly, all three of Wang Zibo's roommates had already folded their quilts and were playing with their phones in bed. Wow, the sun's coming up in the west, you guys can get up this early? Wang Zibo looked at Chu He, who had returned, and replied, of course, to make a good impression on our beautiful teacher Lin. Chu He changed into his slippers and lay down on the bed without a care in the world. Brother Chu, you're not getting your dorm fees worth, you haven't even stayed in the dormitory yet. Kong Deyang was curious, where do you go to sleep every day? You're not really going out to a hotel with some other girl, are you? I've already told you guys, I sleep at the tutor's house, why don't you believe me? Brother Chu, stop bragging, we're all getting a headache. Yeah, if you really live in the tutor's house, then Deyang will have to eat Zibo's shit. Get out of the way. Seeing a few roommates who just wouldn't believe what he said, Shui had to say, if you don't believe it, wait until the tutor comes to check the room and you can ask her yourself if it's true. The three of them shook their heads, and before they could retort to Chu He, the door to the dormitory suddenly opened. Lin Jiqing slowly walked in from the door. Chapter 16 Wang Zibo, what are you doing buying 7-Eleven? Hello, teacher. Hello, instructor. The moment they saw Lin Jiqing enter, Wang Zibo and the others stood up as if they had done it subconsciously. Chuha, on the other hand, didn't react at all. He just lay on the bed playing with his phone, as if he hadn't seen Lin Jiqing enter. Hey, why aren't you standing up, classmate? Wang Xiaoman, who was following Lin Jiqing, recognized Chu He, who was lying on the bed, as the student who had just greeted Lin Jiqing downstairs. Sorry, teacher, I have a stomachache. Chu He put down his phone, curled up on the bed, and covered his stomach with his hands. Out of her subconscious desire to help, Wang Xiaoman immediately wanted to go over and check Chu He's physical condition, but before she could take 2 steps, she was stopped by Lin Jiqing. Damn it! Lin Jiqing waved her hand, indicating that the 3 boys should sit down, and then quickly walked over to Chu He's bed. Chu He, what's wrong? Where does your stomach hurt? Lin Jiqing said, while reaching up to touch Chu He's belly. Leaning sideways, Lin Jiqing's hand happened to be in a blind spot in the field of view of everyone. With a strenuous twist, Chu He let out a cry of ow. Lin Jiqing glared at him, as if to say, go ahead and pretend. You were fine when you left home, but you're like this when you arrive at school? Chu He ignored her. He did this completely to attract the attention of the 2 counselors and distract them, so that some of the contraband in their dormitory could be preserved. Ouch, ouch. It really hurts. Chua was being strangled by Lin Jiqing, but he didn't let go, and he was still rolling on the bed, not sure if he was pretending or if Lin Jiqing was really hurting him. After working for a year, she had seen a lot of tricks from the students. With a slight smile, she naturally guessed Chua's purpose. Standing up, Lin Jiqing followed Chua's words and said, "It seems that it is indeed a bit serious." Wang Xiaoman was really worried. After all, if a student had a problem, the counselor would be held responsible. She was worried that Lin Jiqing would be implicated, so she quickly said, "Xingxing, why don't we take him to the infirmary, or just call 120? Lin Jiqing waved her hand. "I guess he didn't have breakfast this morning. Let him lie down for a while. If that doesn't work, we can ask Zibo to take him to the infirmary. Let's check the dormitory first." Wang Xiaoman was even more stunned. Just now when he said hello, he had obviously eaten breakfast, so why did Xingxing say he hadn't eaten breakfast? And Wang Zibo, who was standing nearby, was in a daze. Hearing that Lin Jiqing could call out his name, and it was even Zibo, he couldn't help but feel a burst of happiness in his heart, and he quickly said, "Don't worry, teacher, I'll take him to the infirmary in a bit." Lin Jiqing smiled like a peach blossom and glanced back at Chu Yi. Sure enough, Chu Yi, who was lying on the bed, was throwing amorous glances at her, as if to say, "It's just a routine bed check, so just go along with it." But Lin Jiqing was determined not to give in to his wishes. She had also been a student, and naturally knew what students were thinking nowadays. Lockers, suitcases, balconies, bookshelves, and even beds, wash basins, etc., could all be hiding places. In protest against Chu Yi's dishonesty in the morning, Lin Jiqing began to search carefully for contraband, not even sparing the corners and nooks. At this point, Wang Xiaoman was also stunned. Xingxing didn't used to be like this. She had always turned a blind eye to contraband that wasn't particularly dangerous to life and safety. Why was she suddenly so serious this time? Could it be that she couldn't stand the student in the bed? Wang Xiaoman filled in the blanks in her own mind. No wonder that student just now, who greeted her downstairs and said he wanted to tell people that she was kissing her girlfriend, must have heard that Xingxing was 29 years old and didn't even have a boyfriend, and deliberately tried to disgust her. Damn it! How dare you bully my best friend, even if you are a student? After filling in her own mind, Wang Xiaoman immediately started rummaging through everything, even more aggressive than Lin Jiqing. She didn't care if there were any personal items or not, and just opened other people's lockers at random. Wang Zibo, Chen Ziwei, and Wang Zibo looked at each other, exchanged glances, and then looked at Chu Yi lying on the bed, signaling him to do something. Chu Yi just shrugged his hands, unable to do anything. In his opinion, Teacher Lin was so meticulous in searching for contraband because she was probably being arrogant again. The more she was told not to do something, the more she wanted to do it. While the four people living together were making eye contact, Wang Xiaoman, whose locker was next to Wang Zibo's, took out a pack of 7 space from it. Whose locker is this? Seeing the 7th space, Wang Xiaoman was momentarily surprised. There are boys all over the house, and someone still uses this? Wang Zibo quickly took a step forward, bowed his head and claimed it. "It's mine, mine." "Why did you buy this?" Wang Xiaoman asked Wang Zibo, holding the unopened pack of 7th space. Wang Zibo was embarrassed and wanted to crawl into a crack in the ground when the female teacher pulled out the 7 degrees of space. I bought it for use as a shoe pad during military training." Wang Zibo looked down, and Wang Xiaoman and Lin Jiqing exchanged glances and snickered. After all, every year during military training, some students do this, so it's not a big deal. She then put the 7 degrees of space in the cupboard, adding in passing, "Remember to change 1 piece a day." Wang Zibo's face turned even redder. The two teachers refused to stop, and they almost turned the dormitory upside down. Finally, their hard work paid off, and they found the following spoils. Wang Zibo's high-powered rice cooker. Kong Dayan's original God-co-signed mahjong set. Sun Dazheng's bottle of 42-degree Fengzhou. In addition, they also found socks hidden everywhere, corn that hadn't been finished eating, and unknown toilet paper stuffed under the mattress. Seeing that the counselor had taken away so many good things, the 3 of them were very anxious, but they didn't dare say anything to the counselor. "I've confiscated all of these things." Lin Jiqing turned her head and glanced at Chu Yi. "And thank you, Chu Yi, for the information. You all have to learn from him, and you can't use high-power electrical appliances and contraband in the dormitory." The 3 of them heard that it was Chu Yi who had ratted on them, and immediately turned their heads to look at him. Chu Yi was pretending to be sick in bed, and watched helplessly as Lin Jiqing poured the dirty water into his lap. Damn, the plot to sow discord. A woman's heart is the most poisonous of all. Chu Yi cried out in his heart, and the 3 of them, Wang Zibo, were about to pounce, but Lin Jiqing took a few steps back and then came back. "Oh yes, if classmate Chu Yi's condition doesn't improve, you must take him to the infirmary. The teacher can't lose such a good classmate as Chu Yi." After hearing these words, the 3 of them looked even more fierce. They quickly agreed with the counselor, and as soon as she left, the three of them immediately pounced on Chu-hee and pinned him down. Black tiger heart picking. Crow flying. Turtle fist. I'll beat the crap out of you for betraying your roommates. Amidst the chaos, all you could hear was Chu-hee shouting, I'm more resentful than Doe. Chapter 17, Dude, are you taking a nap in class? After Wang Zibo and his two friends had finished attacking Chu-hee on the bed, it was quiet for a while. Oh, my rice cooker, my mom bought it but I haven't used it yet, so I stole it to school, but before I could use it once, the instructor took it away. My Mahjong, limited edition, I wanted to play with the rest of you, but before we could play, it was gone. It seems that compared to you, I only lost a bottle of Finjo, which is still considered a small loss. Thinking about this, Wang Zibo unbalancedly turned around and pounced on Chu-hee, shouting, Brother Chu, even if we believe you didn't tip off the others, this incident is also very much related to you, and you have to be responsible for getting it back for us. Yes, yes. Kong Dayang also cried out, it's a limited edition, we must get it back. The two men embraced Chu-hee and shook him violently, shaking Chu-hee to the point where he almost vomited the tofu pudding he had drunk in the morning. Okay, I'll go get it for you guys later, okay? Really? Wang Zibo and Kong Dayang were unconvinced. After all, they had all been charged with actual contraband, and it would not be easy to get it back. Chua smiled and said, seriously, I think Mr. Lin will give me face on this. Mr. Lin is beautiful and kind-hearted, and although he can be quite fierce, as long as you, Brother Chu, are a bit more polite, I think it will work. Yang, having wandered all his life without meeting a wise master, if you can get back the mahjong tiles for me, I'll be willing to call you father. Me too. Me too. Although all three had an 8 a.m. class, they still took their time getting ready. It wasn't until 7:50 that they all disappeared with their textbooks. These are university students who can precisely manage their time. For a while, the large dormitory was left with only Chu-hee, who didn't have morning class. He turned the air conditioning up to 16 degrees Celsius and pulled the covers up. Just as he was about to have a good sleep, his phone suddenly rang. He picked it up and saw it was a WeChat call from Professor Liu. There was no class at this hour, so why was Professor Liu looking for me? With doubts, Chu-hee picked up the phone, and Professor Liu's calm voice slowly came through, Is this Chu? He? This is him. Chu-hee answered. Where are you now? If it's convenient, come to room 503 in the Xing building for class. Class? Professor, I don't have class at 8 o'clock today. Chu-hee was a little confused. He thought that Professor Liu had remembered the wrong class. After all, the professors teaching paleontology don't just teach one subject, they often also teach other majors in the geology department. I know, I haven't had time to notify you yet. Professor Liu said slowly, in view of your talent in paleontology, we have urgently revised the paleontology syllabus with the university. Although it has not yet been approved, we have decided to implement it first for your training. A new syllabus? Chu-hee had a bad feeling, had the timetable been added? It can be considered as such. According to a syllabus we have drafted, you will no longer have a timetable from now on. If there is no timetable, does that mean I don't have to go to class? No, because you will be here every day from 8 a.m. to 9:30 p.m., every day, so whether there is a schedule or not is not necessary. Fuck. Upon hearing Professor Liu say this, Chu-hee had 10,000 thoughts racing through his mind. He had originally hoped to show off his talent, so that on the one hand he could contribute to the progress of paleontology, and on the other hand he could take fewer courses. Unexpectedly, not only had the courses not decreased, they had increased. From morning to 9:30 p.m., what's the difference between this and a miserable high school student? Chua definitely could not agree to this. Ouch, teacher, I'm a little dizzy and can't get up, so. Chua pretended to be weak. But before he could finish, he was interrupted by Professor Liu. It's fine, I can teach you wherever you are, I'll come to your dormitory. What? Upon hearing this, Chua sprang up. Who has a professor who teaches in the dormitory? Chua, who was about to persuade Professor Liu, didn't even get a word out before Professor Liu hung up the phone. Damn it! Damn it! Chu-hee was annoyed. He didn't know how things had come to this. Sitting on the bed, he scratched his hair a little manically, and then pursed his lips and said, at this point, I have no choice but to show my full strength. Only by letting those professors know my true level can they once again revise the syllabus for me. After all, no university student can study from 8 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. every day. It's hard and tiring, but the key is that there is less time to flirt with Teacher Lin, and who can stand that? After a mental struggle, Chewy's eyes hardened. Although in his previous life, his education only reached the bachelor's degree, his basic knowledge was very solid. After his entrepreneurial success, he applied for a part-time postgraduate degree at Jingcheng University and successfully obtained a master's degree and a doctorate. Although Chewy was lacking in theory, it must be mentioned that he had returned from the dead. All those groundbreaking theories in paleontology are still in his head. Click. While Chewy was pondering, Professor Lu had already walked into the dormitory with his teaching plan. He was still wearing a black shirt and black pants, and looked unsmiling. "Teacher, you're here so soon?" Professor Lu smiled at Chewy. "I've stayed in the boys' dormitory a few times, that's why I can come so quickly. Since your head doesn't feel well, you don't need to get up." Professor Lu walked over and tucked Chewy back under the covers, then pulled up a chair and sat down by Chewy's bed. It looked like an old man was tucking a child into bed. The air conditioner was set too low, no wonder you don't feel well. Professor Lu also thoughtfully adjusted the air conditioner to 28 degrees. Then he took out an envelope from the folder and took out a dozen pages of densely printed documents from the envelope. He put it on Chewy's bed and said, "Let's begin the class." "Teacher, I haven't got my books." Chewy was lying on the bed, and the teacher was sitting next to him. He always felt that something was strange. "You don't need to get them. You already know everything in the books. We teachers printed all these together, and you will study them from today onwards." Chewy gave a bitter smile. Professor Lu was about to speak when he pointed at the documents. He heard the sound of a door being pushed, followed by a rude male voice. "Student Union, Department of Student Affairs, checking dormitories." A tall, proud-looking boy walked into the dormitory and saw this scene. A middle-aged man with a serious expression was carrying a small stool and sitting upright by the bed. On the bed lay a freshman, covering himself with a quilt, as if listening to the middle-aged man's lecture. "What the hell is going on here? Can you take a class in the dormitory?" Chapter 18, Go play, you don't need to go to class anymore. "Classmate, is there something you need?" Professor Lu, sitting by the bed, had piercing eyes that made the student checking the room feel a tingle in the scalp. The student checking the room subconsciously bowed slightly and asked with a smile, "Are you a teacher?" "It's okay, we're from the Student Union's lifestyle department, and we're just randomly checking the safety and hygiene conditions." Professor Lu nodded, and the students checking the room were afraid to be presumptuous. They only looked in for a few seconds, then said excuse us and quickly closed the door and slipped out of the dormitory. Immediately afterwards, a murmur of discussion came faintly from outside the door. "Why did you come out so quickly?" "Checking them, freshman, what are you afraid of?" "There's a teacher inside." "Which tutor?" "Isn't it the tutor's daily routine to check the rooms?" "It's normal to have a tutor, what are you a coward for being afraid?" "No, that teacher should be teaching a freshman, and that freshman is being arrogant, just lying on the bed." "Bullshit. Do you take me for a 3-year-old? Who has a teacher come to the dormitory to teach students during class? And the student is lying on the bed. If you don't believe me, just look." Bang! As soon as the discussion stopped, there was a loud noise at the door, and a black-skinned sports student kicked open the dormitory door. "The Ministry of Life is checking the dormitory." The athlete glanced around the room and immediately saw Professor Lu, who looked a little fierce. The athlete instantly shrunk his head. "Professor Lu, why are you here?" Lu Yun put down his teaching plan and glanced at the person again. "It's Xiaoping, still so reckless. This student isn't feeling well, so I'm here to give him a lesson." "Huh?" Xiaoping was taken aback. He was also a student in the geology department and usually loved sports, so he often skipped Lu Yun's classes, which is why Lu Yun remembered his name. In Xiaoping's impression, Lu Yun was aloof and taciturn, and there was always a barrier between him and his students. Today, he actually came to the dormitory to give a class to a freshman? No one would believe this if he bragged about it, right? Xiaoping glanced at the freshman lying in the quilt, his eyelids opening and closing as if he was about to fall asleep. But Xiaoping had a sense of fear towards Professor Lu Yun and did not dare to say much, so he just exchanged a few words of greeting and immediately withdrew. Then 2 more words came from outside the door. "The professor is giving a class to students in the dormitory." What's the student's background? Is he the son of a certain leader? The footsteps of the 2 men gradually grew farther and farther apart. Xiaoping inside the door tapped Chewy's head with the lecture notes. "Don't sleep, didn't you sleep well last night?" Then the class started. Shui opened his eyes dazedly. Had the two big idiots left? They had. Professor Lu pointed at the handouts and, without correcting Shui's stupid nickname for the big guys, said, "The stuff in the handouts is a lot deeper than the textbook. It's all new results and research from the past 100 years. In fact, it's graduate-level knowledge, and we've decided to teach it to you first. Look here." Professor Lu was about to explain when Shui, yawning repeatedly, quickly reached out. "Stop. Professor, it's not that I don't want to listen, I'm just really sleepy. Why don't I write you something, and you can go study on your own?" Lu Yun? In all the years he's been studying paleontology, no student has ever dared to speak to him like that. What's more, although his theoretical level is not top-notch, he is definitely a first-class scholar in China, and Shui actually told him to go study on his own. This is outrageous. Pop. Professor Lu then hit Shui's head with his lecture notes. No respect for the teacher. No respect for knowledge. Shu, although you are talented, there have been many people in history who were talented but ended up being mediocre. You must guard against arrogance and impetuosity, understand? Shu angrily touched his head and then took the lecture notes from Professor Lu, pointing to the beginning. However, due to theoretical and relic excavation reasons, there are still irreconcilable contradictions in the mechanism of ancient biological extinction. Is there a problem with this? Professor Lu said, "At present, there are indeed irreconcilable contradictions regarding the extinction of ancient life. The textbook only adopts one extinction mechanism. This is not for you, it is for those colleges and universities with average comprehensive strength. Shu, you are talented and have good potential. What we need to do now is to let you know what the latest theoretical developments are and how to interpret them. No, I mean I have a way to reveal the correct extinction mechanism and reconcile the contradictions between different mechanisms." You have a way? Professor Lu's glasses slipped as he listened, and just as he was about to persuade Shui to be down to earth in his research, Shui took the blank paper and carbon pen from Professor Lu's briefcase. Then, half reclining, he began to write furiously on the bed. After about 10 minutes, Shui handed over a list full of experimental verifications. "Teacher, what do you think of this method?" "You." Professor Lu thought Shui had read some folk science book by mistake, and after taking the sheet, he was about to scrutinize it before criticizing it harshly. However, as soon as he took a look at it, his face became grave. The determination of the carbon/nitrogen isotopes of ancient chlorophyll monomers reconstructed the evolution of atmospheric carbon dioxide levels and the community structure of marine primary productivity during that period. As he read word by word, Professor Lu's face became increasingly serious. Until he reached the last line, he suddenly stood up from his chair. He was so fast that the chair behind him overturned with a clatter. "Where did you get this?" Professor Lu's breathing became uneven. If this experiment and paper were written, they would be accepted by a top journal. "I did it myself, it's just a hobby." Naturally, Shui refused to say where the experiment came from. In fact, the experiment was completed by Professor Shin's team in 2022. But it's 2014. Seeing Shui's expression of complete indifference, Professor Lu didn't know what to say. He picked up the phone and put it down again, then took the lecture notes directly from Shui's quilt. "No, I have to report to Professor Zhao, this is too significant." "Professor, you haven't even taught me anything yet." Professor Lu glanced back at Shui. He really didn't know where this genius had come from. He also wasn't sure if he was qualified to teach him. "Go play. You don't need to take the class anymore." After saying this, Professor Lu quickly left the dormitory. It's only been half an hour, and the teacher has run away again. Sigh, being too talented is also a sin. Shui folded the quilt and turned off the air conditioner. He wasn't sleepy anymore, so he might as well go directly to Teacher Lin and get those things back. After all, his 3 sons are still waiting for them. Shui thought this, immediately closed the door and left the dormitory. Chapter 19, Shui's 3 conditions. Lin Jiqing's office. Teacher Lin was wearing a dark red long skirt today, and the tight fabric highlighted her figure. Now, she was sitting at her desk, crossing her legs as she wrote her lesson plan. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. "Come in." Not knowing who it was, Lin Jiqing subconsciously tucked her long, snow-white legs into her skirt. She looked up and saw a smiling face in the doorway. It was Chu He. "Are you free, teacher?" Shui smiled as he walked into the office and sat down on a sofa. "Classmate Chu He, why are you so self-aware? Did the teacher tell you to sit down?" Lin, don't be so formal. Didn't we kiss this morning? Lin Jiqing's eyes immediately focused on Shuhi when she heard him say this, and she glared at him. This is a school, who told you to say this here? Shuhi didn't think so. Aren't we the only two here? Teacher, I miss you, let's kiss first before talking. Shuhi said and stood up, approaching Lin Jiqing and pouting his lips slowly. Lin Jiqing pushed him away disgustedly. Don't look for trouble. Say, what are you doing here? So boring. Shuhi took out an A4 piece of paper from his pocket, with only one sentence written on it. I came here to give you the introduction that you punished me to copy. You finished copying it so quickly? Lin Jiqing took the A4 paper and found that there was only one sentence on it, with no more than 10 words including punctuation marks. Shuhi, you're ashamed to show me what you wrote. He. Shuhi stroked Lin Jiqing's back again. I'm just trying to get close to you, Miss Lin. I wrote one sentence and turned it in, so that I can have more opportunities to meet you. When Shuhi said this, Lin Jiqing immediately laughed angrily. Get your hands off me. Do you want to undo my shoulder straps again? And don't you dare hand in one sentence at a time, you have to hand them all in at once. No way. Shuhi put down his hands and became serious instantly. Teacher, you can't deprive a student of their admiration for their teacher. I have to hand in one sentence at a time. You. Lin Jiqing stood up and glared at Shuhi, then changed her tone and said, Did I deliberately smear you this morning so that you got beaten up in front of your roommates? Shuhi laughed disdainfully. Why would my roommates beat me? I'm their teacher husband. They worship me and can't wait to do so. What do you mean by teacher husband? Lin Jiqing didn't understand. The husband of a teacher is of course the teacher husband. Nonsense. Lin Jiqing couldn't handle Shuhi's slick tongue, so she just gave him a stern look and said, Tell me, what will you do if I promise not to write a word and send it back every time? Hearing Lin Jiqing say this, Shuhi knew his plan had worked, so he immediately raised his finger and started making demands. First, return all of my 3 eldest sons' rice cookers, mahjong sets, and finjo. Second, I demand the right to inspect your dormitory. In the future, you must get my permission before you inspect our dormitory. Third, kiss me right now. If you can fulfill the above 3 conditions, then I promise I won't send you back for every sentence you don't write. Shua finished the 3 conditions with great spirit, standing tall like a Sigma man. Lin Jiqing, on the other hand, had a gloomy face after hearing the 3 conditions. She didn't say a word, but instead got up and went to the door to pick up the broom. Teacher, what are you doing with the broom? If you don't agree, just don't agree. What are you doing? Lin Jiqing waved the broom in the air, and the wind it created blew directly into Shui's face. Shuhi, you have repeatedly challenged the authority of your teacher, and today you even want to be above your teacher. As your counselor, I must teach you a lesson. With that, she waved the broom and walked towards Shuhi. Shua was obviously a little panicked, but he couldn't let the broom hit him. He quickly backed up, and Shua raised his hands in supplication and said, Teacher, why don't we talk about this? No. I'll lower my demands. Can you just return the contraband and not report to me when you check the dormitory? You're still bargaining. Lin Jiqing of course refused, and the broom came closer to Chua again. He could feel the whistling wind brought up by the broom. Murder. The tutor at the University of Geology murdered her husband. Does anyone care? Seeing that Lin Jiqing had no intention of stopping, Shui immediately started running around Lin Jiqing's desk, giving a lively performance of the King of Qin running around the pillar. Shut up! Lin Jiqing, wearing a skirt, chased after Chui, but Chui kept darting around like a monkey. No matter how hard Lin Jiqing chased, she just couldn't catch him. After 10 minutes of back and forth, Chui was panting, holding onto the chair, looking as if he was about to run at any moment. Lin Jiqing was also sweating profusely. She pointed her pointer at Chui and said, who if you're so capable, don't run. If you're so capable, don't chase me. Chui was very intimidated by the broom in Lin's hand. You! Lin Jiqing shouted, and then took 2 more steps. Chui saw his chance and immediately grabbed her broom. He pulled it over, but Lin Jiqing refused to let go, and as a result, she even bumped into Chui's arms. Teacher, be careful. Chui grabbed the broomstick with one hand and wrapped his other arm around Lin Jiqing's waist, who was half lying in his arms. As a result, Lin Jiqing, who was sensitive, trembled and immediately looked up at Chui. After staring at him for a while, Lin Jiqing's face was still a little red, and she shouted, "Let go of me." Shua laughed like a crazy man. You are so beautiful, teacher. Then, ignoring Lin Jiqing's struggles, he kissed her directly. Lin Jiqing's hands and feet symbolically struggled a few times, and then stopped moving. At the moment, her body seemed to have softened into a pool of mud, and if it weren't for Chua holding her up, she would have already slipped to the ground. Chui's lips directly wrapped all of Lin Jiqing's soft lips, savoring her flavor bit by bit. After a minute or so, Chui was already feeling hot and bothered. He took off his jacket and said to Lin Jiqing in his arms, "Teacher, the office is not a bad place." After saying that, he even took off his shirt. Seeing Chui pounce like a hungry wolf, Lin Jiqing immediately panicked. This is the school office. Besides, she wasn't ready to give her body to him. So, before Chui finished undressing, Lin Jiqing, who was blushing, immediately slapped Chui. "Chui, wake up." "Teacher, I'm very awake, we are legal." Chapter 20, Teacher Lin's Diary. Just as Chui was preparing to launch a full-scale attack, and Lin Jiqing could only passively defend herself with difficulty, the office door suddenly knocked. "Someone's here, someone's here." Chui helped Lin Jiqing up, and Lin Jiqing, with a red face, flicked her hair. With a click, the door opened. Wang Xiaoman was standing outside the door. "Qingqing, there's a meeting." Lin Jiqing let out a small "oh," and went back to her desk to get ready for the meeting. Wang Xiaoman had already noticed that Lin Jiqing was in a strange mood, and she quickly walked into Lin Jiqing's office, where she was not surprised to see Chui again. "Why are you here?" Wang Xiaoman felt that Chui's appearance was really too frequent, as if there was always Chui wherever there was Lin Jiqing. "Oh, teacher, I'm here to hand in Lin Jiqing's homework." Wang Xiaoman looked at Lin Jiqing suspiciously. Lin Jiqing kept her head down and deliberately ignored Wang Xiaoman's gaze. "Yes, his major is special, so I need to personally check his homework." "Really?" Wang Xiaoman obviously didn't believe her, but Lin Jiqing would never let her add fuel to the fire here. Grabbing her things, Lin Jiqing pushed Wang Xiaoman to leave. "Okay, let's go to the meeting first. Your office is still open, and that student is still inside." "Qingqing, why are you so red?" "Hey, Qingqing, don't push me." In a hurry, Lin Jiqing didn't bother to clear Chui out of the office. Clang! The door was slammed by Lin Jiqing, and for a moment, Chui was the only one left in the large office. "Teacher Lin is gone, she didn't kick me out. Is she implying that I can go get my things myself?" Due to school regulations, even if the teacher wanted to return these things to me, she couldn't, so this was the only way she could handle this matter, and leaving me alone in her office was the best proof. After thinking through the logic, Chui immediately went to Lin Jiqing's desk. Just as he squatted down to open the locker and see what was inside, another voice came to mind. "Isn't it bad to just rummage through the teacher's things? What if there's something in the office that I shouldn't look at? Oh, what the heck? She's my wife now, and besides, she's always opening my locker in the dorm room. This is called treating others as you would be treated." After the struggle was over, Chui pulled open the small locker under the desk. But the contents were a big disappointment to him. There were just papers and papers, piled up to the brim of the entire locker. Disappointed, he closed the locker and turned his head to pull open the other locker. Inside were still some documents, except that on top of the documents was a thick notebook. There was even a combination lock on the notebook. What is this? Lin's diary? Who keeps a diary? Let's see if Lin is a good person. He pulled out the notebook and squinted at the combination lock on top. Combination locks are good for preventing the virtuous, but not the wicked. In high school, he had often broken into other people's combination locks. As a result, he had spied on many secrets. He held the notebook and the combination lock up to the sunlight and looked at the gaps inside bit by bit. In less than 30 seconds, Shuhi had broken the combination lock that Lin had attached to the notebook. When he returned to Lin's desk and opened the notebook, he saw that it was indeed her diary. What's more, the diary was quite old, dating from 1995 to 2003. He hadn't even been born in 1995, and Lin was only 10 years old. Holy shit, she started keeping a diary when she was 10? But this diary can't be called a diary, it should be called an event log. Because it mainly records some of the things that happened when Lin was 10 years old. Like what, her parents took her to eat lamb shabu shabu, took her to the zoo, and so on. Chua just flipped through this running account until he reached April 3, 1997. That night, Lin Jiqing's mother was not at home, so her father took her out to eat roast duck. When they returned, it was raining heavily and there was loud thunder. The 12-year-old Lin Jiqing was a little scared as she took her father's hand. Her father told her, Jiqing, don't be afraid. Just hang on a little longer and we'll be home. When we get back, I'll make you some ginger ale. Lin Jiqing nodded. But just as they passed the last intersection, a speeding car came at them without warning, heading straight for the father and daughter. In a panic, Lin's father pushed Lin Jiqing out of the way. He was hit by the speeding car. With thunder roaring, 12-year-old Lin Jiqing saw her father covered in blood in the rain. Grief and shock immediately overwhelmed her, and from then on, rainy nights became Lin Jiqing's complete psychological shadow. Although it sounds a bit melodramatic, this is indeed what Lin Jiqing personally experienced. Later, Lin's father died, and the drunk driver who hit the car was heavily sentenced because he could not afford to pay. Lin's gentle mother's temperament changed drastically, and her anger and desire to control the people around her became commonplace. In less than 2 years, Lin's mother remarried with Lin Jiqing, and Lin Jiqing's stepfather was a taciturn man with no opinions. He was the same man Shuhei had seen at home the day before. Seeing this, Shuhei closed the diary with a heavy heart. No wonder teacher Lin was so afraid of thunderstorms on rainy nights. I never would have guessed that her life was so difficult. Shuhei touched his chin, then I will protect teacher Lin in the future. After checking the diary, Shuhei relocked the combination lock. No wonder the combination was 0403. It was the anniversary of his father-in-law's death. Chua stood up and was about to give up looking for the rice cooker, but occasionally looked up and suddenly saw a round object on the office cabinet opposite. It was Wang Zibo's pot. After searching high and low, he had finally found it. Chua pointed at the pot and said, Teacher Lin is good at hiding things, this is a good trick. He then pulled up a chair, took the rice cooker off the cabinet, opened the lid, and found a bottle of Fen wine and a set of mini mahjong inside. Mission accomplished. After taking the items, Shuhei guessed that he should leave a note for teacher Lin, so he wrote it down in a flourish. Teacher, I've taken the items. I know you told me to leave them behind so that I can take them back. After doing all this, Shuhei left Lin Jiqing's office contentedly. 30 minutes later, Lin Jiqing returned to her office after a meeting. As she was about to get a glass of water, she suddenly saw Shuhei's note. Shuhei. Who told you to take the things back? You just wait and see. Lin Jiqing finished, put down the glass and rushed straight to the dormitory. Chapter 21 Shuhei, whose buttocks were swollen by teacher Lin. My sons, your adoptive father is back. Shuhei held a rice cooker in his hands and kicked open the door to the dormitory. The three of them, Wang Zibo, who had no class in the second period, were playing Tian Tian Cuckoo in the dormitory at the time. When they saw Shuhei bring the things back, they immediately stood up. Brother Chu, you really brought it back? What did you tell the counselor? Wang Zibo hurriedly came forward to take his rice cooker. Chua sat down on a chair, took a sip of Kong Deong's tea, and said with a deep voice, I went to the tutor's office, sat in her seat, and said, Xiaoqing, give me the stuff. The tutor was scared at that time and immediately obediently went to get my stuff. Hey, why are you all standing up? Chua hadn't finished bragging when the three people who were originally sitting in front of him suddenly stood up. Wang Zibo gave Shuhei a wink. Brother Chu, I think you'd better not say anything bad about teacher Lin. Shuhei gave a disdainful laugh. Who said I was saying anything bad? I'm just telling the truth. If you don't believe me, tell her to come here and confront me. Wang Zibo and the other two students all put their hands on their foreheads, then said in unison, Good day, teacher. Shuhei suddenly felt a murderous aura behind him. Before he could turn around, a pair of soft, warm hands already reached around to his ears. Then he lifted it upwards, directly dragging Shuhei up from his chair. Ouch, ouch. Shuhei immediately screamed in pain. Wang Zibo and the other two saw the fierce Lin Jiqing and immediately felt a little fear in their hearts. They hurriedly excused themselves, saying, Teacher, the pot and mahjong are all here, please spare Brother Chu. Lin Jiqing gave Wang Zibo a cold stare. Are you going with him? No, no, no. Wang Zibo and his two friends quickly put on their jackets and said, Teacher, we haven't had breakfast yet, so we're going to go get some first. Lin Jiqing didn't say anything, and the three of them ran out of the room. Hey, don't run away. You three traitors, just abandoning your adoptive father like that. The sound of the three of them running down the stairs gradually faded away. Lin Jiqing then let go of Shuhei's ear. Who told you to take these contraband items? Lin Jiqing was very serious and didn't care about sentiment. But Shuhei didn't think so at all. Teacher, didn't you mean to leave me alone in the office? You're talking nonsense. I was in a hurry for a meeting and didn't have time to look after you. I didn't expect you to have no self-awareness at all and to steal in my office after I left. Who stole it? How can you slander someone's reputation out of thin air? Shui flushed with anger and argued, taking your roommate's things can't be considered stealing. Lin Jiqing crossed her arms and said, I'm afraid it's more than just taking your roommate's things. You've read my diary too? How did she know? He was a little surprised. He had put the diary back in its place, so there was no way she could have known. I'm a decent person, and decent people never read other people's diaries. Decent person. Lin Jiqing looked around, then picked up the broom in the corner and rushed up. This time, Shui didn't have time to run and was pressed against the bed by teacher Lin's soft body. She took the broom and started whacking Shui's, but I'll teach you to run. I'll teach you to read my diary. Why aren't you running this time? Domestic violence. Does anyone care anymore? Shut up and don't say a word. After repeatedly beating Chuhi for more than 10 minutes, Lin Jiqing was finally willing to put down the broom in her hand. Chuhi, who was lying on the bed, looked like a disgruntled woman, constantly touching her somewhat swollen buttocks. Teacher, you have to be responsible for me. Lin Jiqing glanced at Chui's sad eyes and couldn't help but laugh. Then she took out a bottle of Dai de Tong Jigon and threw it on Chui's bed, twice a day. How did you get this? You've been planning to beat me for a long time, haven't you? Chuha gritted his teeth and picked up the ointment. Lin Jiqing didn't say anything, just smiling while looking at her nails. Then rub some on my butt, it hurts like hell. Chua lay on the bed and used his hand to pluck at Lin Jiqing's long hair. Lin Jiqing stood up and took the rice cooker and wine in her arms again. I'll leave you the mahjong, but the rice cooker is too dangerous and drinking is not good, so I'll take it all. No, teacher, you have to take responsibility and help me apply the ointment. Lin Jiqing ignored him, walked over to Chui, freed a hand to pat Chui's bottom, let out a giggle, and then left the dormitory with the contraband. For a while, the dormitory was left with Chui alone, wailing. Murdering her husband. Long planned. Vicious. Vicious, really vicious. Chui lay on his bed and wailed for a while. He even carefully pulled down his pants, ready to apply the ointment himself. It wasn't until 10 minutes later that Wang Zibo and the others returned to the dormitory and saw Chui wailing, and they hurriedly got to work. Brother Chu, you said the instructor did this? She really spanked you? No way, can a tutor do something like that? The three of them were puzzled, and Chui cursed angrily, you three idiots, you ran away, leaving just me and the tutor. Did she hit you or did I hit myself? Wang Zibo applied ointment to Chui's bottom while thinking, how could the tutor do something like that? How could her slender, white fingers do something so tragic? Shu Ge, it's not like you're using a ruse, is it? Shua, I'll be there at 8 a.m. Su Ju and Chon Zematikan. Try spanking yourself, and don't even talk about a ruse. Wang Zibo, are you suffering from brain atrophy? I find it hard to believe. Wang Zibo smeared the medicine on his buttocks while seeking approval from Kong Dayang and Sun Dajing. Both nodded, we feel the same way, Chua. It's more likely that you would do it yourself than the counselor would. Chuha, damn it. Why did I ever make you three ungrateful people my roommates? The heavens are blind. I thought I had a good name, but it was ruined by Lin Jiqing. What a crime. Chuho wailed again. Come on, Chua, there's a new student party tonight, and the club recruitment is not over yet. We'll show you the nightlife. Are you serious? We're dead serious. Okay, then I will endure the pain and accompany you old lechers on this trip. Brother Chu said this and stood up, covering his buttocks. Brother Chu, you haven't finished yet. Wang Zibo was at a loss for what to do with the ointment. What's the point of taking pictures? A real man doesn't act like a girl. I can bear this pain. Kong Dayong, 666. Sun Dajing, 666. Wang Zibo, I don't believe that the teacher has beaten you anymore now. Chapter 22 Chapter 22, Can I have your WeChat ID, senior? After a long afternoon of classes, dusk finally arrived. Not only was there a club recruitment drive, but there was also a freshman party. It was said that in the annual tradition of the University of Geology, the seniors and juniors would all dress up very nicely. This was a fatal blow to the Prince Bo and his friends, who had just started university. At 6 p.m., they ate snail noodles in the second canteen, which was close to the playground. The three of them are still talking about their experiences from the night before. Brother Chu, you didn't see it last night, but one of the girls was wearing a miniskirt and had a great body. The robot from the mechanical club was amazing, it could sing and dance with people. College life is great, it's not like high school where we were ordered to go to bed after class and there were hardly any people on the playground. Yeah, it feels good to be out in the fresh air now. The three of them were talking about the past and getting sentimental. Shui, who had just taken a sip of the noodles, knocked on his bowl. Who wants to hear you reminisce about the past? Go on and tell us which schoolgirl was the prettiest. Sigh, this snail noodle soup is really spicy. Wang Zibo looked at the red color in Shui's bowl and laughed. Hey, Shu, who told you to order medium spicy? The chili used in snail noodle soup is just spicy. Kong Diang interrupted Wang Zibo. Brother Chu, if you ask me, last night the cosplay fox girl was the most beautiful, and she had a tail. Shua glared at Kong Dayon. Is the tail attached to her clothes? I don't think so, it looks like. Kong Dayon laughed before he could finish his sentence. Sun Dazheng, who was eavesdropping, also burst out laughing. Wang Zibo looked at the three of them with a puzzled expression. What's so funny? What's wrong with a tail not being attached to clothes? Ignoring Wang Zibo, Shui finished the noodles in one go, and the other three also sped up. But, Kong Dayang said while eating, I think our tutor is still the most beautiful. After seeing our tutor, I know what white skin, beautiful face, and long legs mean. Looking at the other girls, I feel a bit inadequate. Sun Dazheng nodded in agreement, but Wang Zibo looked unconvinced. Who said that? I think the senior in the dance club is better looking than the tutor. But what Wang Zibo didn't expect was that as soon as he finished speaking, Shui took the bowls away. Shuge, what are you doing? I haven't finished eating yet. Shui ignored him, stood up with the two bowls and said, Don't eat, let's go and see how many beautiful girls there are. Kong Dayang and Sun Dazheng also finished eating and poured out their soup. The four of them walked out of the canteen with excitement. It was 6:30 p.m., and the playground was already packed with people. In the midst of the bustling crowd, one could see individual clubs planted in the playground. They were trying every means to promote their clubs. Hey, Junior! Come join our roller skating club. Roller skating is awesome, and it will give you a taste of speed and passion. Junior, check out our Phantom Camera Club. We have hired professional teachers to teach. Come on, don't miss it if you're walking by. Our acrobatics club will perform a chest-breaking stone breaking first. As Chu He and his three friends entered the playground, they saw an upperclassman lying on the ground with a thick stone slab pressed against his body. Next to him, someone raised a huge hammer high in the air and slammed it down. With a loud bang, the stone on the upperclassman's body immediately shattered. Holy shit! This can be performed as a show? Isn't the school afraid of something going wrong? Prince Bo, who had never seen a man break a boulder with his chest in real life, was suddenly surprised. The freshmen, who had gathered in a circle 3 layers deep, burst into applause. Kong Dayang said, They've all practiced. Let's go, if you want to see acrobatics, go to the circus. What kind of acrobatics are we watching here? Xiao Yang was right, this club was probably not popular with many college students. Shu He walked forward with his hands in his pockets. Why, I think it's quite interesting. Prince Bo couldn't understand. Shua smiled, many college students are already clowns to their girlfriends, so why would they want to be clowns in the acrobatics club? Zibo. The four walked past the acrobatics club and saw another robot dancing on the grass. It was wearing overalls, holding a basketball in its hands, and its shoulders were shaking, looking very funny. Unfortunately, in 2014, the idol superstar Kai, who dominated the rap world, had not yet become famous. The mechanical club really has real talent. Sun Dazheng looked at the dancing robot intently and even imitated it. Chuge, there's dancing ahead. While Chui was still looking at the robot, Kong Dayang shouted suddenly, directly drawing Chui's attention. They saw 3 schoolgirls in hot pants, showing off their snow-white thighs, dancing enthusiastically on a grassy field further ahead. Their graceful movements accentuated their already outstanding figures, making them even more eye-catching. Chua and his friends abandoned the robot and hurried over there. After struggling to squeeze into the crowd, and glancing at the surrounding male university students, Chua exclaimed, This is what I call attracting new customers. What the hell was that just now? While Chu-hee and the other 3 were mesmerized, another female schoolmate with a ponytail walked over with a flyer. Look at our dance club, Junior, boys can learn too. Kong Dayang and Sunda were watching the other people dance, and they felt bad not taking the flyer, so they had to take one in their hands. Look at it, Junior. The schoolmate took another flyer and gave it to Chuhi. Chuhi took the flyer and glanced at the ponytailed schoolmate again. Her face was rosy, her eyes as bright as Lin Jiqing's, and her nose was high and straight. In particular, her lips were perfectly rosy, and anyone who saw them couldn't help but be surprised. "Senior, can I join the dance club and dance with you?" Chuhi asked, holding up the flyer. The senior with the ponytail gave a small smile, revealing 2 dimples. "If you like, of course." "Then I'll join." Chuhi just finished saying this when someone poked him twice in the back. He turned around and saw Prince Bo, who was blushing. "What's wrong, Bo? What did you do to make you look so red?" "Chu, brother Chu. You can't join the dance club, this girl is mine." Poof. Seeing Prince Bo's cowardly appearance, Chuhi couldn't help but laugh out loud. "What's the matter, Bo? You like her?" Wang Zibo blushed and muttered, "I don't care, you can't add her anyway." Seeing Wang Zibo like this, Kong Dayong quickly added, "Brother Chu, he took a fancy to her last night. He ended up watching her for half an hour, but he was too scared to ask for her WeChat. I told him to go, but he wouldn't leave." At this moment, Wang Zibo's face turned even redder. Chua smiled wryly, stepped forward, and grabbed the schoolgirl handing out flyers next to him, saying, "Schoolgirl, I have a roommate who likes you. Can you give him your WeChat?" Chapter 23, Lin Teacher's Seductive Cheongsam. Upon hearing this, Wang Zibo was stunned. The schoolgirl with the ponytail turned her head, gently wrenched Chua's hand free, and said with a smile, "Sure, but you have to join our dance club." After she finished speaking, she took out a mobile phone from her jeans and scanned the QR code. Chua pushed Zibo forward and said, "Add her, she's already scanned the QR code." Zibo's hands trembled with excitement as he took out his phone and scanned the code. A girl with an avatar of Xiaokue from Crayon Shinchan appeared. Xueje, my name is Zibo Wang. Just add me as Zibao." Seeing Zibao's embarrassed expression, Xueje couldn't help but laugh. "Okay, my name is Xinyue Zhou. Then, let me help you distribute the flyers." Zibao seemed to be afraid that Xinyue Zhou would refuse, and he snatched the flyers from her hand. He started distributing them one by one. The 3 people next to Chuhi were stunned by this silky operation. "Zibao is really..." Chua shook his head. Even after being reborn, Zibo has not changed his nature of licking dogs. But fortunately, this time he is not licking the original green tea girl. But this Zhou Xinyue seems to be a bit interesting. "Let's go," said Chua, "let's go somewhere else first, don't disturb Zibo from licking the goddess here." After Chua and the other 2 said that, they walked towards the cosplay club. Meanwhile, in the small auditorium next to the playground. Have all the programs been rehearsed? Has the schedule been arranged? It starts at 8 o'clock, and it's already 7:15. Backstage in the small auditorium, Lin Jiqing is urging the progress of the evening with a serious face. She is not only a counselor and a teacher, but also in charge of some administrative affairs. For example, this time the freshman party hosted by the club is hosted by Lin Jiqing. At the moment, she, who has changed into a light blue cheongsam at some unknown time, is already a little anxious. She keeps arranging the students in charge of the party to quickly advance all the preparations before the freshman party. As she walked back and forth in the background, the slender thighs under the split of her cheongsam occasionally revealed, adding a touch of high-spiritedness to her. "Teacher, this is our final program, you are the host, so you should take a look. In addition, you have a chorus of the Rose Thief in the middle." Lin Jiqing picked up the pen the student handed her and quickly wrote her name on the signature sheet, before handing the program back to the student. "Teacher, do you really not choose the chorus members? In case no student is willing to interact with you at the time, won't that cause a performance accident?" As soon as the student finished speaking, Lin Jiqing's cold gaze was directed at him. At that moment, another student next to him immediately pulled him away. "No, you've got a donkey for a brain. Teacher Lin is not like any other teacher, she is the most beautiful teacher in our school." As the 2 walked away, Lin Jiqing sighed softly again. "I wonder if that brat Chu will come. He didn't even reply to the message I sent him. If I really go up there and sing, will that brat Chu sing with me?" Lin Jiqing felt conflicted. On the other side, on the playground, Chuhi and Sun Dazheng were sitting cross-legged on the grass, looking at the female schoolmates in cosplay. "That brat Kong Dayang can't walk away from a game of Go, he has to play a game with someone, and it's a fierce battle right now. Brother Chu, look, the fox girl with the tail is here again." Chuhi followed Sun Dazheng's gaze and looked over at the girl. Sure enough, the girl in the pink fox costume had a tail on the back. It really is attached to the costume, so it's not interesting. Shuhei was a little disappointed when he saw that the tail was just a decoration. Sun Dazheng laughed, Brother Chu, if it's really like you say, I'm afraid she won't be able to wear it today. Why can't she wear it? Shuhei patted Sun Dazheng on the shoulder and said, Brother, I'll take you to see a real fox with a tail some other time. Sun Dazheng looked at Shuhei blankly and asked, Brother, is this fox you're talking about decent? Shuhei laughed and didn't answer, looked at his phone, and saw that the time had already come to 1940. He stood up, patted his butt, and Sun Dazheng followed suit. Let's go, find Zibo and Xiaoyang and let's go to the freshman party. Okay. The freshman party is a traditional and preserved program of every university. At the University of Geology, most of the programs are mainly performed by various clubs, and the rest are voluntarily reported by teachers and students. In this way, the programs are available, and the club's purpose of publicity is also achieved. What is different from other schools is that the University of Geology has always had the practice of voting for the best program of the party. Being selected as the best program will not only win generous prizes, but will also be preserved in the school history and become a unique memory symbol for the people of the University of Geology. Even many freshmen who have graduated from the University of Geology can name the best program of their freshman year. Therefore, the best program of the freshman party has also become the most valuable award in the hearts of many students. In the small auditorium, the Chu River foursome had already found a seat in the third row. Wang Zibo was still rattling on in Shui's ear about how he and that older sister got along so well. They actually both like One Piece. And they both like to travel. Shui gave Wang Zibo a look. Was there any possibility that there were very few girls who didn't like to travel? No, I think the school sister and I are a good match. And I can clearly see that the school sister likes me, she often smiles when she looks at me, really. Seeing Wang Zibo's face full of faith, Shua didn't say anything else. Wang Zibo, this is a lack of love for too long, so that other girls just a little better, he is eager to give his heart to someone else. And self-brainwashing, and even the future with another person all imagine sweet time. This is self-moved. Wang Zibo was talking about the moment of the sky, the small auditorium has been fully occupied, came late seniors, and even in the aisle Tokumaza sat down. As the time reached 8 o'clock, the lights in the auditorium went out. Then, a sweet female voice slowly came from the microphone. Good evening, distinguished leaders, students, and colleagues. Why does this voice sound so familiar? Wang Zibo muttered. Bang! Another loud noise, the lights came on and slowly moved. At this moment, the spotlight in the auditorium all fell on Lin Jiqing. She was wearing a cheongsam, holding a microphone in one hand and a program in the other, and her sweet smile lit up the room. Holy shit, that's the beautiful teacher, she's so pretty. She has such a great aura, and the color of the cheongsam perfectly complements her. Wow, Teacher Lin is so beautiful. Lin Jiqing had only made an opening remark, but the atmosphere in the room had already reached its peak. Chapter 24, Little Rascal, where are you touching? Seeing the effect on the field, the dean, director and other leaders sitting in the front row also nodded. It seems that it was really the right decision to let Teacher Lin Jiqing be the host and host of the evening. Yes, young people nowadays like this one. The cheers from the audience continued for nearly 5 minutes before there were signs of stopping. Lin Jiqing continued to smile and scan the audience with her eyes. When she saw that face with its hint of rascality smiling back at her, a stone in Lin Jiqing's heart slowly fell to the ground. Only then did she begin to speak the opening remarks and announce the program as per the program list. Chua, sitting in the audience, saw that Lin Jiqing was dressed in a cheongsam and his mouth watered. Why hadn't she worn it at home? Why didn't she tell me about being the host? She didn't fulfill her duties as a wife. Chua complained, opened his phone, and discovered several unread messages on WeChat. 2 of them were from Teacher Lin. Don't go home tonight, honestly sleep in the dormitory, and don't play any tricks. There's a freshman party tonight, if you have time, come and see it. Even if you don't have time, come. Seeing these messages, Chua smiled. No wonder he wanted to let him watch the freshman party. Teacher Lin, with her new skin unlocked, is truly infinitely charming. Chua straightened his clothes and patted Wang Zibo next to him, signaling him to get up. Wang Zibo, Brother Chu, the show's not over yet, and you're already trying to sneak out? I'm going to the bathroom, so just leave me alone. Chua, who had slipped into the aisle, took advantage of the distraction to run out the side door. In his memory, there was a door at the back of the auditorium that led directly to the backstage area. Shui finally found the door after a lot of twists and turns. The teacher went to so much trouble to seduce me. If I don't do anything, that would be really rude. After saying that, Shui smiled and slipped into the backstage. On the stage, Lin Jiqing had just finished her introduction and subconsciously glanced at Shui's seat again. When she noticed that his seat was empty, Lin Jiqing frowned. This kid, don't I look good in a cheongsam? He even skipped out without even listening to my opening remarks. Lin Jiqing was a little upset and stomped off, her shoes clicking. The dance performance by the dance troupe was about to start, and Wang Zibo at the front of the stage was already cheering. Go for it, senior. Lin Jiqing walked past the noisy front of the stage and went backstage, where the second magic show was already waiting at the entrance to the stage. Lin Jiqing gave them a few words of encouragement and then walked towards her office. As Lin Jiqing was the host of the party, she had a temporary office here. Opening and closing the door, Lin Jiqing directly threw the program in her hand on the table. You little brat. You bastard. I even took out my cheongsam today, and you didn't even watch the opening act. I even reminded you on WeChat, but you just ignored me. Speak. Lin Jiqing muttered to the coat rack where her brown cowboy hat hung. At that moment, there was a click from the door. Who is it? Why are you in my office at this time of day, when you're not getting ready to go on stage? Lin Jiqing was in a bad mood, and the cold aura around her grew more intense. The door opened, and a face smiling slyly poked its head out from the outside. Teacher, are you talking about me? Shui smiled and walked in. You. How did you sneak into the backstage? Backstage is off limits to non-staff, and I didn't expect Shui to sneak in. Then just leave it, teacher. We don't have much time, let's get started. Shui said with a lecherous smile. Get started with what? Lin Jiqing frowned, not knowing what Shui was talking about. But Shui didn't explain, and with a strong push, he pushed Teacher Lin onto the sofa. With a wave of his hand, Teacher Lin's white thighs stopped being faintly visible and were now fully exposed. So white, so seductive. Chua rubbed it with ill intent, but his eyes were fixed on Lin Jiqing. Teacher, you deliberately changed this outfit this afternoon, aren't you trying to seduce me on purpose? Where? Lin Jiqing twisted her face away, not to test Chua's breath, and then pushed Chua with her two arms. Get up, don't touch me. I still have students to report on in a while. I'll be quick. Shui said this, and directly pressed his body against Lin's, pushing her onto the sofa. Shui's weight was all on Lin, as if there was a soft cushion under him, and it even gave off a burst of fragrance. Shui. Lin started struggling again with a pout, but Shui had long since grown used to it. Teacher, you actually want a kiss too, but you're embarrassed to say yes so quickly. What are you talking about? Let go of me. Shui repeated his old trick and ignored Lin's struggles, kissing her directly on the lips. Lin's gray thighs had now become Shui's toy. He kept kissing her mouth while also touching her hands. An older girl like Lin, who had never been in love, was once again made physically weak by Shui's kiss. They continued kissing like this for 2 minutes, until the door was knocked on again, and Shui reluctantly let go of Lin. Lin Jiqing straightened her tangled cheongsam and signaled Shui to hide under the desk. No, we're doing it legally, why would I hide? Shui didn't want to. At this time, Lin Jiqing had no choice but to push Shui under the desk in one go. Damn it! Shui was indignant. Lin Jiqing deliberately sat behind the desk and stretched her legs under the desk. Touch away. This is considered compensation for you, but you can't make a sound. That's more like it. Shui, like a fool, crawled under the table and groped Teacher Lin's thighs. At the door, a boy in a martial arts uniform walked in. Teacher, can we go get ready to go on stage? Lin Jiqing kept her face expressionless. Just wait a little while, wait until the second performance is over before you go on. The boy nodded. In that case, can we rehearse again during this time? I think. Ah. The boy's words were not finished when Lin Jiqing suddenly let out a cry. Teacher, are you okay? Are you not feeling well? The boy asked kindly. Lin Jiqing hurriedly shook her head. It's nothing, you go and get ready first. You are in charge of your program, so you decide. Oh, okay, teacher, you're blushing. If you're not feeling well, I have medicine. It's nothing, I'm just a little nervous hosting the program, it'll be fine in a bit. Lin Jiqing hurriedly sent the boy away. Then she pulled Shui out from under the table. Ouch, teacher, don't pull my ears. Shui looked innocent. I told you to touch my leg, where did you touch? Lin Jiqing glared at Shui fiercely. Shui covered his ears and denied it. Where did I touch, teacher? You tell me where I touched. You. Lin Jiqing's breasts rose with anger. She lifted her cheongsam to reveal her slender thighs, and she kicked Shui right in the vital area. Oh. Shui leaned down in pain. Teacher, I'm the only child in my family. Lin Jiqing stood up coldly. You reflect here, I have to go on stage to host the show. Humph. Little rascal. Chapter 25, Singing the Rose Thief with You. Of course Shui wouldn't listen to Teacher Lin and let him reflect in the office, so he really stayed in the office. Besides, Teacher Lin had already left, so what was the point of him staying in the office by himself? He might as well watch the show with Zibo Wang and the others. Shui returned to his seat with his crotch covered. Wang Zibo looked at the suffering Shui and asked in puzzlement, Brother Chu, what's wrong? Why are you covering your crotch? Did you go into the wrong toilet and get beaten up? Fuck you. Shui gave Wang Zibo a headbutt. Wang Zibo touched his head in distress. It's true, you're sweating from the pain. Shui didn't pick up on Wang Zibo's topic and said to him, what was just on? Zhou Xanu, the schoolmate, just danced. She is beautiful, and she is even more beautiful when she dances. Oh. Shui was not very interested. Zhou Xinu is indeed pretty, but compared to Teacher Lin, she is not as good looking. After all, the mature aura of Teacher Lin, which has been tempered by the years, is hard for these young girls to match. Shut the fuck up. Wang Zibo hadn't finished talking when Kong Dayang, who was standing next to him, pointed at Wang Zibo and scolded, I wanted to take a look with Xiao Zhang, but Wang Zibo, that son of a bitch, covered our eyes and said we weren't allowed to see his girlfriend. That's true. Although Miss Zhou hasn't agreed yet, she will sooner or later. Fuck. Kong Dayang wanted to punch Wang Zibo across the river, but Shui pulled him back. Hey, Yang, Zibo is so stupid. What if you hit him again and cause his brain to atrophy? Exactly. Zibo agreed. No, who are you calling stupid, Shu? Anyone who interrupts is stupid. Besides, Zibo didn't say you guys would suffer. He just told me to treat you to barbecue. Really? Kong Dayang looked at Zibo. Me? Shu, your blood. Before Wang Zibo could say the word insult, he saw the fierce glares from Kong Dayang and Sunde. Fine, I'll treat you to barbecue. That's more like it. Hearing Wang Zibo's promise, Kong Dayang sat down on his seat obediently. At that moment, there had already been 5 or 6 performances on stage, and the show was halfway through. However, the 5th and 6th performances were not very interesting, causing the atmosphere to slump for a while. The other male host, who was co-hosting with Lin Jiqing, came on stage and livened up the atmosphere by saying, everyone, the next performance is going to be really interesting. Our Lin Jiqing, Miss Lin, is going to sing a love song, but she wants someone to sing with her. Who would like to do that? As soon as these words were spoken, the entire audience cheered. Miss Lin is going to sing a love song? I'll do it. You're fucking tone deaf, you'll just get in the way, I'll do it. I'll see who dares to compete with me. I'm determined to get the spot on stage today. Since ancient times, heroes have won the hand of a beauty. If anyone on stage disagrees, they can fight me. In an instant, dozens of hands were raised from the audience. The male host quickly took control of the situation and said, Ahem, everyone is too enthusiastic. I haven't even said what song Teacher Lin is going to sing. We must be able to sing it before we can go on stage. After saying this, the male host glanced at the program. The song that Teacher Lin will bring to you is The Rose Thief. Does anyone know how to sing it? Swish. Many of the dozens of hands that were raised dropped, leaving only 7 or 8 pairs still raised. Oh, it seems that there are quite a few who know it. The male host glanced at Teacher Lin and said, then let's let Teacher Lin choose her own backing singer. The male host looked at Teacher Lin and signaled for her to make a choice. From the audience, Wang Zibo let out a sigh of regret. Oh, I can't do it. If I could, I would go for it. What would you do? Do you like the instructor? In the dimly lit audience seats, Wang Zibo suddenly felt a murderous aura. He looked at Shui and said, oblivious to his own death, it doesn't matter if you like her or not. It's a beautiful thing to be able to sing with a beautiful teacher. Fuck you. Shui kicked Wang Zibo off his seat with one kick, then raised his hand. Brother Chu, you're hitting me again. Wang Zibo struggled to his feet, but saw that Shui had already raised his hand. Kong Dayang and Sun Dazheng, who were standing nearby, were also taken aback. Brother Chu, can you sing? Don't go up there and disgrace our dormitory. Yes, yes, you must do what you can, Wang Zibo added, leaning on the seat. On the stage, Lin Jiqing, who had been picking and choosing back and forth, saw Chuhi raise his hand and his eyes lit up instantly. Following Lin Jiqing's finger, everyone's gaze turned to Chuhi. How did this kid get on? I don't agree. My roommate can sing too, why not let him sing? This seems to be one of teacher Lin's students, and there's nothing wrong with the teacher choosing his own student. Maybe they've practiced together. In full view of everyone, Chuhi walked out of his seat and walked up to the stage step by step. A leader in the first row's gaze sharpened. Is that him? Who is it? A leader next to him asked. The new student majoring in paleontology is said to be exceptionally talented. In order to help him, Professor Zhao even changed the teaching plan himself. This student is so strong, even Professor Zhao values him so highly? Yes, Professor Zhao has a penetrating gaze. Maybe our school can really produce an academician of paleontology. Academician. The leader next to him smacked his lips. He also knows how difficult it is to become an academician. He glanced at Chuhi, who had a determined gaze, and muttered, I hope so. On stage, the male host handed Chuhi a microphone and whispered, Don't be nervous, just sing normally. However, he noticed that Chuhi's eyes were fixed on Lin Jiqing the whole time. You little. The male host poked Chuhi, If you're ready, I'll go down. I'm ready, teacher. The male host nodded, stood in front of Lin Jiqing and Chuhi, and announced loudly, Please enjoy the chorus The Rose Thief. The lights on the stage went out, and the accompaniment slowly began with the sound of thunder and rain. Ms. Lin's eyes became red for no reason. As the accompaniment slowly progressed, Ms. Lin picked up the microphone and sang in a gentle but magnetic voice. Why does the summer night breeze blow, like a dream that has passed and cannot be pursued? The helmet that was once lost on the journey has been slowly ground into dust by time. Why is the afterglow of the setting sun always beautiful at the moment of parting? The tears of grief that I let go for you were once the treasure I held in my heart. As soon as Lin Jiqing's voice came out, the cheers from the audience instantly reached a crescendo. Teacher Lin is so talented, her voice is so stable. Damn, it feels like I'm at a celebrity concert, it's awesome. I'm so intoxicated, she's so pretty, and she sings so well. Chapter 26. I love everything about you. It is recommended to listen to The Rose Thief while reading this chapter. After singing these 4 lines, Teacher Lin gave Chuhi a look on stage, indicating that it was his turn to speak in the next paragraph. At this moment, the original cheering trend had suddenly changed in the audience. Can this guy sing? Don't ruin Teacher Lin's song. I bet he won't, this guy doesn't look like he can sing. If he has any problems singing, we'll just make him leave the stage directly later. Yes. The crowd is buzzing with discussion, and the Prince Bo trio is also worried. Brother Chu, this is a bit sudden. I've never seen Brother Chu sing before. Now they can only silently cheer for Brother Chu. Have you noticed that Brother Chu and the counselor seem to have an unusual relationship? Have they? It seems pretty normal to me. On stage, Chuhi is ready to go. Although there are strong opinions about him going on stage, he has long since melted into the accompaniment. Little brat, you think I was the karaoke prince in my previous life? Singing a song is nothing. You bunch of snobs, just wait and be amazed. Chuhi picks up the microphone and confidently sings, Either you hug me, or shoot me and execute me. He starts the first 2 lines, both of which are sung too high. Cough, cough, Chuhi awkwardly cleared his throat. If you can't sing, get off the stage. Find someone who can sing and get up here. The audience immediately started booing. At the critical moment, Prince Bo suddenly exerted himself. Damn it, when you call your mother. When you sing without getting out of key. He literally silenced those who were booing. Chuha touched his Adam's apple with his hand. What he didn't expect was that singing in his previous life was already a thing of the past, but now this body is still in his freshman year and has not yet fully adapted. Just as he felt something was wrong, Lin immediately saved the situation by singing the following lyrics, Devour me like the wind, or push me into the vortex, rescue me, take me away before dawn. Great! Teacher Lin sings well. Awesome, Teacher Lin, I love you. Lin's sweet but powerful voice once again silenced the audience. Meanwhile, Chuhi was still trying to control the voice of this body. The first part ended, and the interlude slowly began. During the elegant interlude, Lin walked towards Chuhi step by step, encouragingly took his left hand and sang the next part. The warm glow of the past is like a flower smiling with 100 charms. The fortress built for life later, the more splendid it is, the more withered it becomes. Chua felt the warmth in the palm of his hand, turned his head to look at Teacher Lin, and she spoke slowly, with a gentle smile on her face. At that moment, Chua really felt that Teacher Lin was as beautiful as a fairy descending to earth. Gripping Teacher Lin's hand, Chua gave her a signal, indicating that he would sing the next part himself. Teacher Lin nodded in belief, and she naturally put down the microphone, but at this moment there were already too many people breaking the defenses in the audience. Teacher Lin took his hand. Ah, Miss Lin is so warm, she even held his hand to encourage him when he couldn't sing. Why can't I get such good luck? Damn, where's the infirmary? I need to get my back molars fixed. On stage, Chuhi completely ignored the idle gossip below. He picked up the microphone, exhaled slowly, and sang. Now that it's come to this, I still think that facing absurdity head-on is acceptable. The track I once laid down for my ideals has quietly stolen my roses. The soft and delicate male voice completely blended with Lin's sweet and high-pitched female voice. The originally angry crowd below completely calmed down when they heard these two lines. Some people even had tears in their eyes and began to empathize. The iceberg fell into the broken river, and the lonely star rushed to the fireworks. The snail heads towards the sea, throwing its trembling shell. Either you come and hug me, or shoot me and execute me. Love or death will turn me into a flower. After singing these lines, Lin's eyes began to well up again. The song proceeded slowly, and the entire audience was completely immersed in the resonance brought on by listening to the song. Either you come and kiss me, don't let the night swallow me. Thousands of clouds swept past my body. When singing these two lines, Lin already had 2 lines of tears in her eyes, and her voice began to tremble. The painful memories of the past were like huge waves, completely engulfing her along with the singing. He remembered that rainy night when she was only 12 years old. On that stormy night, she witnessed her father being hit by a car and falling into a pool of blood. Since then, that bloody scene has been imprinted in her mind like a steel nail. Whenever she recalls that scene, it causes her excruciating pain. From that day on, she began to shut herself off from the world. She shut off her emotions, her hopes, and her expectations. She threw herself into her studies, numbing her aching nerves with a wealth of knowledge. She thought she would spend her whole life healing herself. She thought she would never be able to love again. And she thought that she would never be loved again. The feeling of grief tearing her apart made it impossible for Lin to make a sound for a while. At that moment, Chuhi, who sensed that Lin's emotions were not right, immediately picked up the microphone and sang the next line along with Lin's voice. To love the old twilight. To love the warm and bright river. That is the fire burned by the roses I planted. Take me away. The gentle and delicate male voice completely enveloped the depressed female voice, as if giving the entire song a soul. When the song ended, the lights in the entire venue went out again. I don't know who started a round of applause, which immediately spread throughout the audience, and the massive applause continued for a long time. In the pitch-black darkness, the audience could only see 2 figures hugging each other. What they didn't see was that in the darkness, Lin Jiqing had already taken the initiative to kiss Chuhi. On the dim stage, Lin Jiqing held Chuhi tightly, her tears on her cheeks still wet, but the pent-up love in her heart, which was erupting like a volcano, was no longer able to be suppressed. Even Chuhi was shocked by Lin Jiqing's boldness. Although the lights were off, they were still on the stage after all. After a moment of hesitation, Chuhi wrapped his arms around Lin Jiqing's waist. If you have suffered too much before, then after, let me bear it with you. I love everything about you, including that heart full of scars. It is precisely because of those scars that you have become the real you. After kissing for nearly 30 seconds, Chuhi took Lin Jiqing's hand and walked off the stage, heading directly for the backstage area. The applause continued at this time. The lights didn't suddenly turn on until the two had completely walked off. The male host walked up to the stage with a smile and said to the audience, "Wasn't the singing between Teacher Lin and that student just great?" "Yes." The audience responded enthusiastically, obviously not having seen the two kiss. "It really was great, I was in the backstage and almost cried." The male host concluded, "You could tell that Teacher Lin and that student were using their true feelings, and that they had practiced their singing skills well. Their singing was very stable." Okay, without further ado, let's move on to the next program. Chapter 27 Don't Tear My Cheongsam. Backstage, Lin Jiqing, who had washed her face, began to slowly try to calm herself down. It is said that the more suffering one experiences, the more mature one becomes. But for Lin Jiqing, suffering brought not maturity, but numbness after despair. Instead, the release on the stage today made her feel a little more comfortable in her heart, and feel that she was still alive and well in this world. Teacher? While Lin Jiqing was washing her face, Shuhi was already standing behind her. Shuhi had read Lin's diary, and he knew very well how much Lin Jiqing had been hurt by witnessing her father's death. If you still don't feel well, you can continue to hold me. I can't pull you out of that rainy night all at once, but I can stay with you and accompany you through every rainy night in the future. Shua's affectionate words made Lin Jiqing's somewhat pacified mood waver again. She turned around and, like a helpless little girl, threw herself into Chua's arms. Her arms wrapped around Chua's neck. Chua stroked Lin's back with one hand to calm her down, while with the other he slowly stroked her head. He let her release her emotions. Lin Jiqing just held Chua like this for 10 minutes before falling asleep in her temporary office. In the second half of the show, the male host took to the stage, and Lin didn't need to go back on stage again. She only needed to go back on stage again when it was time for the final vote and the closing remarks. Chua put his jacket on her arm, tiptoed out of the office, closed the door, and leaned against the doorframe. Influenced by his past life, after absorbing so much negative energy from Lin, Chua desperately wanted a cigarette. He subconsciously felt in his pockets, and realized that he hadn't bought any cigarettes in this life. He sighed and was about to give up when someone handed him a cigarette. Is this the one you want? Chua looked up, and a man wearing a black shirt, gold necklace, and half-rimmed glasses was smiling at him. After taking the cigarette, the man handed him a lighter. Chua lit the cigarette, put it in his mouth and took a sharp drag, then coughed. He had forgotten that in this life he didn't smoke. Even though the memories brought over the mental craving for cigarettes, his body still couldn't bear it. The man across from him lit a cigarette of his own and laughed, pointing at Chui's cigarette. You're quite something, taking a drag like an old smoker, but coughing after 2 puffs. Shuhi didn't respond, leaning against the doorframe and taking another drag, then asked, and you are? The director. The man pointed inside the door, your girlfriend invited me. Huh? Shuhi frowned, how did he know about Lin's relationship with me? The man laughed, you two kissed on stage, do you really think I didn't see that? Chua's brows furrowed even more. But it's okay, only I saw it. The man took another drag and then stubbed out the cigarette neatly at his feet. Let's get acquainted, my name is Zheng Yang, I'm Lin Jiqing's childhood friend. Childhood friend? I'm afraid it's not that simple for a boy and girl to be childhood friends. Chua's eyes on Zheng Yang became hostile. Ha, you college student are quite aggressive, you've stared at me several times in such a short while. Zheng Yang laughed, you're right, I do like her. Jiqing is rational and pretty, no boy would let her go. Chua didn't say anything. But don't worry, she doesn't like me, I knew that a long time ago. Zhou Yang scratched his head, we've known each other for 25 years, but she only sees me as a friend. Jiqing has had a hard life. Her uncle died young and her aunt is so dominant. Sometimes I see the pain hidden beneath her cold pupils and it makes my heart ache. I really like her, I really do. This must be more than you, Zheng Yang's eyes grew deep, but I hope she can be happier. Since she doesn't like me, I'll just keep being there for her. Every time I see her happy, I feel like the day is happy. Do you understand what I'm saying? Zheng Yang looked at Chu He. Chu He slowly finished the last drag and stubbed out his cigarette, then said, So I hope you guys are happy. That's for sure. Looking at the affectionate man in front of him, Chu He didn't know what to say. Okay, remember to call me on your wedding day, I'll give you a big red envelope. No need, Mr. Lin and I have already gotten our marriage certificate. Got it, got the certificate. Zheng Yang's eyes dimmed for a moment, but soon brightened again. That's even better, I wish you all the best, really. Okay, I'll stop talking now, I should go. If you have anything, you can find me at my studio. Zheng Yang handed Chu He a business card and walked towards the studio. Chu He took the card and said to Zheng Yang's back, Lin and I also wish you find someone you like soon. Zheng Yang waved his hand, his footsteps a little messy. He turned his head and returned to the office, where Lin had already opened her eyes. Who were you talking to? Lin Jiqing asked. Chu He sat down next to her and stroked her face, your childhood friend, Zheng Yang. Zheng Yan? Why did he come? Lin sat up and looked at Chu He, noticing that something was wrong with his face. You little brat. Are you jealous? Lin Jiqing looked at Chu He with a smile. Of course I'm jealous. He said in front of me that he likes you. How can I bear it? Lin Jiqing smiled and lightly poked Chu He's waist with her smooth toes. Silly, I don't like him, why are you jealous? Then, Teacher Lin, will you kiss me again? Seeing that Lin Jiqing had put her foot up, Chu He immediately pinched and touched it a few times, then half bent his body and leaned closer to Lin Jiqing. Get out of here. Lin Jiqing really felt a bit repelled this time. Have you been smoking? Smelling the smell of smoke on Chu He, Lin Jiqing frowned. I thought Zhang Yang was smoking and the smell had rubbed off on you, but it turns out you smoke too. No, I'm an adult, what's wrong with me smoking? Chu He was unconvinced. What did you say? Lin Jiqing grabbed Chu He's ear with lightning speed. No smoking. No smoking. It's bad for your health. Did you hear that? Ouch, ouch, it hurts. Chu He pinched Lin Jiqing's hand to release his ear, and then laughed. Teacher, did you wake up? You still have a while before you go on stage. Let's get back to some serious business. What are you doing? Don't tear my cheongsam, I still have to go on stage. Chu He, you're being a rascal again. Chapter 28, Teacher Lin, give me a son. You're so annoying. If you keep this up, you're not allowed to go home tonight. Chuha, who was harassing Teacher Lin, instantly let go of her hand when he heard her say this. What do you mean, I'm not allowed to go home tonight? Lin Jiqing pushed him away, put on her shoes, picked up the phone on the table, opened WeChat, and handed it to him. Here, take a look for yourself. Chu He took the phone and saw that the top of the chat interface opened by Teacher Lin said Mom's note. Below was a conversation between the two. Years like flowers, Qingqing, I'll sleep at your place tonight, your stepfather is always angry with me. I just made you some tonic soup. How are you feeling these 2 days? Has your stomach moved yet? Qingqing, why aren't you saying anything? I'm counting to 3. Qing Tian, I'm hosting a party. I'll be home late at night, so you can either sleep at my stepfather's place. Rua Sui Ru Hua, what do you mean, you don't like me? It wasn't easy for me to raise you on my own, and now that you've just bought your own house, you want to abandon me? No way. I have the keys anyway, so if you don't come back, I'll go over there first, and I'll take the tonic I made over there, and you both have to drink it when you get back. Xing Cheng, no. Rua Sui Ru Hua, if you don't drink it, I'll break your legs. I'm still waiting to hold my grandchild. After reading this conversation, Chu He smiled and looked at Teacher Lin, then replied directly to Teacher Lin's voice message. Mom, it's Chu He, I love it. Hey, you asked for it. Lin Jiqing didn't stop him, so Chu He took advantage of the situation. Chu He didn't read his mother-in-law's reply, put down his phone and started to get closer to Lin Jiqing. What are you doing? You're going on stage. Our mom is right, teacher, you have to give me a son. What are you talking about? No, don't come over. The audience at the moment. The following program is a far cry compared to the chorus between Teacher Lin and Chu He. Wang Zibo and the other two are all bored, and Sun Dazheng has even fallen asleep in his seat. Wang Zibo, with his hands in the pockets of his jacket, whispers to Kong Dayang, Yang, what do you think Brother Chu is doing backstage? He hasn't come out for so long. How would I know? Kong Dayang says. Is there really something going on between Brother Chu and the instructor? You think about it, Mr. Lin just joined the school and he immediately punishes Brother Chu, and Brother Chu has never lived in the dormitory since the beginning of the semester. And the strangest thing is that it seems like they are always inseparable. Wang Zibo analyzed seriously, while Kong Dayang said disdainfully, I already said that they have a problem, but you just wouldn't believe it. When did you say that? Kong Dayang. Zibo, do you think they are in a relationship? I think so. They are so close, I'm afraid it's true. But this is just too hard to accept. What's so hard to accept? Zibo looks all wise. According to my judgment, Teacher Lin must be Brother Chu's cousin. Brother Chu was forced by his sister to register for our school in the college entrance exam, so that Teacher Lin can monitor Brother Chu at any time. Dayan, Zibo, your IQ is truly unrivaled. Zibo, that's right, that's right. As the two men were having a lively exchange, the last performance on stage finally finished. The lights in the auditorium came on. Teacher Lin and the other male host went on stage together. At this time, Chu He also snuck from the side and took his seat. Chu Ge, you're back. Did you study singing professionally? you sang so well just now, I almost cried. What were you doing backstage? Wang Zibo heartlessly spoke to Chu He. Kong Dian, however, went straight to the point and asked Chu Yi, Brother Chu, what is your relationship with Teacher Lin? Upon hearing this, even Sun Dazheng woke up, and all three pairs of eyes fixedly stared at Chu Yi. Chu Yi's face did not change, and he unscrewed the mineral water on his left and said calmly, Teacher and student, what else could it be? Brother Chu, don't pretend, I've figured it out. Wang Zibo said, rubbing his chin with one hand, according to my careful observation over the past few days since the start of the semester, you and Teacher Lin should be. What is it? Chu Yi's eyes flashed with panic. After all, this was not the time to announce his relationship with Teacher Lin. He drank a mouthful of water as if to hide his panic, and Zibo Wang spoke in a measured tone. Of course it's brother and sister. What else could it be, husband and wife? Puff. Chu Yi couldn't hold back any longer and spluttered a mouthful of water directly onto the floor in front of him. What are you doing, Chu Go? Did I get my analysis wrong? Chu Ha laughed, looking at Zibo like he was a retard. You're right, you've discovered it. Zibo, you really are very clever. Damn it. I knew it. Back then, when I was reading 100,000 Whys, I could easily analyze the answers, and you can't hide this little thing from me, Chua. The four people in the audience whispered, and on stage, Teacher Lin already took the microphone and spoke. We've had a wonderful evening, and our new student party has come to an end again this year. The male host chimed in, yes, this year's program was as good as ever, and especially Teacher Lin's song was truly unforgettable. Such a song should be remembered by the students of the university. I hereby announce the start of the voting ceremony for the best program of the freshman party. Please fill in your favorite program on your ballot. Offstage, several volunteers wearing red vests handed out a ballot and a pen to everyone, so that they could write down their favorite program. Wang Zibo looked at the program on the light blue ballot and looked at Chu He with regret. Brother Chu, I can't vote for you and Miss Lin. I'm voting for Miss Shou. Chu He gave Wang Zibo a slap. Ungrateful wretch, you'll have to buy me yellow braised chicken and rice tomorrow at noon. Hey, that's fine. Wang Zibo quickly wrote down the name of the dance performed by Zhou Xinyue. Then he stood up again to look at Kong Diyang and Sun Dazheng, and saw that both of their lists said the Rose Thief. He sighed. He then peeked at the ballots of the people in front of him and found that most of them also had the Rose Thief. Prince Bo scratched his head and sat down. Shua looked at the frustrated Prince Bo and quickly wrote a few words on the ballot, then waved it in front of Prince Bo's face. This is called the trend of the people. Prince Bo's eyes became even more dispirited, and Chu He directly slapped the ballot in front of his chest. Take a look at what's written. Prince Bo took a look at the ballot, and it was exactly Zhou Xinyue's dance program. Chu Gu, you. Chu He patted Prince Bo on the shoulder. Zibo, let me tell you, it doesn't matter if Zhou Xinyue's program gets the best, the most important thing is that you tell her you voted for her, understand? Prince Bo stuttered, but, Chu Gu, You what? Zhou Xinyue is in the fourth row, take these two ballots and get lost. Chapter 29, Best Show. The Rose Thief. After Chu He scolded Wang Zibo away, the voting continued in an orderly manner. Once everyone had voted, the volunteers collected the ballots one by one. At that moment, more than 10 volunteers from the audience, holding a thick stack of ballots, were lying down in the first row, counting the votes one by one. The crowd below anxiously waited for this year's final results. Even many freshmen came specifically because they had heard that the best show prizes were very generous every year. They wanted to see how generous the prizes really were in order to decide whether they should go on stage next year to perform for the next group of freshmen. After the volunteers had tallied everyone's choices, they handed an envelope with the answers to the male host. Okay. Everyone, colleagues, and leaders. We have finally reached the moment to reveal the mystery. Who will win the best performance of the year? The host, instead of announcing the answer, turned to Lin Jiqing and asked, Teacher Lin, who do you think will win the best performance of the year? Lin Jiqing smiled and said into the microphone, I don't know. Do you think it will be you? Well, I can't really say. After all, the students who participated in the performance this year are all so strong. To be honest, I'm not really sure, Lin Jiqing said. Ms. Lin, you are too modest. I think the performances of you and your students are still etched in everyone's minds. The male host opened the envelope and took out the final result. Okay. I know everyone is annoyed that I have been keeping everyone in suspense, so I won't do this anymore. The male host looked at the result on the envelope. This year's best show is The Rose Thief. The performers, Ms. Lin Jiqing and her students. Wow! Hearing the long-winded male host finally announce the final result, the students in the audience who had originally supported Teacher Lin cheered. Next, let's warmly invite Teacher Lin's classmate to the stage. And with warm applause, please invite Vice President Zhang Defei to present them with their prize. The audience burst into applause. Chua, sitting in his seat, and Vice President Zhang Defei, sitting in the front row, walked towards the stage at the same time. Vice President Zhang was stocky and serious. He walked onto the stage, took the microphone from the male host, and began to speak naturally. We have been holding this freshman party for many years, but why is it so popular with the students and teachers? Every year, some students even post the party online, and it is well received. Why? I think it is because we never hold any judging or voting. Since the party is for the students, they should have the right to vote. After Dean Zhang finished speaking, the audience began to applaud enthusiastically from the bottom of their hearts. Dean Zhang said well. Amidst the cheers of the crowd, Shuhi had already walked from the audience to the stage, standing next to Teacher Lin and whispering, "Teacher Lin, I'll go find you later. I'll wait for you in the parking lot for 2 minutes. If you don't come, I'll tell my mom that you don't want to come back." But that's the parking lot, Teacher Lin. Do you know how far the auditorium is from the parking lot? Even if you run like crazy, it'll take 5 minutes. I don't care, I'll start timing you. 2 minutes later, I'll start the car and leave. Hey, Lin teacher, you won't let me go. If I go, who will you kiss at night? Rascal, you see if I dare. After the two of them had just finished whispering, Dean Zhang reached out his hand and pulled Lin Jiqing and Chu He to the front, saying, "Everyone, look. The people our classmates have chosen for themselves are a perfect match." Ha? Dean Zhang, that's not quite the right word, is it? Chu He was a little shocked. Lin Jiqing was smiling, but she was close to Chu He, and she secretly reached behind her and pinched Chu He's waist. Hey, what's wrong with you two? Dean Zhang asked unromantically. Nothing, Dean. Lin Jiqing hurriedly tried to smooth things over. Zhang Defei nodded, that's good. Next, I'll announce the prizes for the two of them. This year's prizes are a 7-day tour of Suzhou, a Sony camera, and their performance will also be included in the annals of the school's freshman party. Everyone applauds in congratulations. Thunderous applause once again rang out from the audience, half in celebration and half for the prizes. Suzhou, one of the core cities in the Jiangnan region, the freshmen never expected the school to spend so much on them, actually giving them a 7-day tour. However, in the eyes of these students, this prize was embarrassing. After all, where would a teacher take students to tour the Jiangnan region, and it was even a female teacher taking male students, how embarrassing. As for the Sony camera, it's not cheap, and the total value of the two prizes is probably not less than 10,000 yuan. It seems that attending the freshman party is well worth it. A 7-day tour of Suzhou? For free. Upon hearing this prize, Chu River was also a little overwhelmed. In his previous life, he had long admired the beautiful scenery of Jiangnan, but due to his busy work schedule, he had never been able to take a trip there. When he did go on a few business trips, he was too busy with work to enjoy himself. In this life, he had unexpectedly been given the opportunity to go on a company trip, and he was even going with Lin Jiqing. He was so happy. The school had even specially equipped him with a camera, which was really thoughtful. Chuha looked at Lin Jiqing, and Lin Jiqing looked at him. In addition to their happiness, their eyes were filled with the reflection of the other person. After the host had finished handing out the prizes, and after reading the end credits, the annual freshman party finally came to an end. The satisfied college students discussed the performances they had just watched as they walked back to their dormitory. Shuhi didn't even have time to say goodbye to Zibo Wang and the others, and quickly dashed out of the small auditorium and ran to the parking lot at the east gate. Shuhi had already calculated that it would be very easy to reach the parking lot in 2 minutes, as long as he broke the world record. But there was another way, and that was to reach the parking lot before Teacher Lin got into her car, so that no matter what, Teacher Lin could not abandon him. Shuhi ran like crazy, using every ounce of strength he had to be able to sleep in the same bed as Lin Teacher that night. He finally arrived at the parking lot first, in 4.5 minutes. He spent another 30 seconds finding Lin Teacher's car, and looked in through the privacy glass, seeing that Lin Teacher hadn't even gotten in yet. Shuhi looked to the sides, then prepared to hide in the grass. Just imagine how sad Lynn teacher would be when she got to the car and realized I wasn't there. Then I'll jump out of the grass. Won't that give teacher Lynn a big surprise? Little brat. I'm just not going to exert my powers, but if I did, I'd kill you, teacher Lynn. Chua was about to walk towards the grass when he heard a gentle female voice coming from it. Chua, you're here. Shit, there's a ghost. Screw you. Chua slapped it. Chapter 30. Finish the tonic and go to sleep. Ah. A familiar female voice sounded, and Shuhi panicked instantly. Could it be that teacher Lin was just trying to scare me? Shuhi thought, and then looked through the grass. Sure enough, teacher Lin was wearing a cheongsam and had fallen to the ground, with the hem of the cheongsam flapping to the side, exposing both of teacher Lin's fair thighs. Holy shit, is teacher Lin really you? How dare you hit me? Lin Jiqing covered half her face, her eyes bulging with red bloodshot veins, looking furious. Help me up right now. Lin Jiqing held out her pale left hand for Chuhi to pull her up. Chuhi explained while pulling Lin Jiqing up, Teacher, I didn't mean to do it. Besides, you really shouldn't scare people like that, it can kill them. Besides, I'm obviously faster than you, how did you get in front of me? I was riding on Xiaoman's electric bicycle. Lin Jiqing gritted her teeth and patted the dust off her body. Chua was also busy, quickly going behind Lin Jiqing to help her pat the places she couldn't reach. But as he patted, his thoughts began to wander. Lin Jiqing, your butt is so bouncy. Hearing this, Lin Jiqing's face instantly turned a bright red, and she turned around sharply and slapped Chua. Little rascal, how can you become a talent useful to the country when your mind is full of lustful thoughts all day long? Chua touched the half of his face that Lin Jiqing had slapped and giggled, Teacher Lin, we're even. I don't seek to become a pillar of the country, as long as I can be useful to you. Useful to me? Humph. Lin Jiqing snorted, and without looking back, she took the keys to her Mercedes-Benz and walked towards her car. Shui hurriedly followed behind her, afraid that if she got angry, she would just drive off. Pulling open the passenger seat and getting in, Shui sighed, Teacher, I'm a man, I can't always let you pull me around, otherwise I'll go get a driver's license. You're still going to get a driver's license? Lin Jiqing turned her head and looked at Shui up and down, then said, You'd better not. I think it's a complete waste of time for you to get a driver's license. Don't look down on people, let's bet, dare you or not. What's the bet? A wicked smile appeared at the corner of Chui's mouth, and then he leaned over to Lin Jiqing's ear and whispered something. Lin Jiqing's face immediately turned red again, and this time it was as red as a ripe apple. Even her ears were burning. Little rascal, you're playing a good game of chess. Lin Jiqing twisted the key, started the engine, and then stepped on the accelerator. The car sped out like an arrow. Damn it, teacher, you think this is a race car? Slow down. Even the old driver Chui couldn't help but grab the handle above his head and hold on to the seatbelt tightly, not daring to move. The car sped all the way and surprisingly arrived home in just over 10 minutes. Of course, the price was that Chui got out of the car and ran to the side to dry heave. Lin Jiqing parked the car and stood behind Chui, patting him on the back. Hey, Chui, are you okay? You look really pale. Chui pushed Lin Jiqing's hand away and wiped his mouth. Of course I'm okay. A man can't say he's not okay. Looks like I was driving too slowly. Lin Jiqing carried her bag and walked upstairs. Shuhi hurried after her. Teacher, you didn't deny the bet I just made, so I guess it's already been established. I'm denying it now. No, it's too late now. The two of them entered the house, laughing and joking. At that moment, Shui's mother-in-law, Lin Fen, was waiting for the two of them at the entrance again. Oh, my dear son-in-law is back. Aren't you tired after a long day of school? Lin Fen immediately came forward and took Chui's hand, asking after his well-being, completely ignoring Lin Jiqing, as if Chui were her own flesh and blood. Chua smiled and replied, Not at all. My sister Lin takes good care of me at school. She often makes me write things, and of course I'm not tired of sitting there and copying every day. What? Hearing this, Lin Fen immediately turned around and glared at Lin Jiqing. Xingqing, you punished my husband? Lin Jiqing stared at Chua and said, Don't talk nonsense. Have you finished writing what I punished you to write? Mom, you see, I was punished. Chua hurriedly sought Lin Fen's help. Lin Fen waved her hand, I'm in charge, you don't have to write. Whoever dares to object can come to me. Mom, this is my classroom discipline. This kid violated classroom discipline and should be punished. Don't you worry about it. I'm going to worry about it. This is my home, I can't make the decisions anymore. It's settled, you don't have to write, young master. Hey, thanks, Mom. Shui threw a flirtatious glance at the somewhat angry Lin Jiqing. Let's go. I'd made you pig's tail and peanut soup, and you must drink it all tonight. Huh? Pig's tail and peanut soup? Shui was shocked. This is not a proper soup. Will it be good for me if I drink it? Sure enough, Shui, who had been dragged over, saw that in the soup Linfen had made, there were a few pieces of meaty pig's tail floating around in the soup, with peanuts, red dates, and other ingredients. This stuff doesn't look appetizing. Mom, this. Shui glanced at the gloating Lin Jiqing, as if seeking help. But Lin Jiqing just looked at him like he was a joke, so Shui had to lie. Mom, I ate too much tonight, so I'm not going to drink the soup. I'm going to go to bed first. After saying that, Shui put on a pose as if he was going to run. Stop. Linfen had worked hard for several hours, so naturally she wouldn't let Shui get away so easily. Young master, I have been slaving away for hours to make this soup, and you just say you won't drink it. Do you think that's possible? Seeing that he couldn't get away with it, Shui had to continue to try to trick her. It's fine, there's no problem drinking it in the morning. I like to drink soup in the morning. What effect does it have if you drink it in the morning? You have to drink it at night. Linfen said this while serving up a bowl and offering it to Shui. Drink it now. Drink it in front of me. Seeing the greasy pig's tail, Shui made up his mind, stamped his foot, picked up the bowl, sat down at the table, and buried his head in his food. Seeing that Shui had obeyed, Linfen finally smiled. That's right, after you finish drinking, you and Qingqing should go to bed early. I'm still young. If you want a child now, I still have the energy to take care of it, but in a couple of years, I won't even be able to hold it. Mom, Shui is still young. Who's small? Shui couldn't stand to hear such sensitive words and immediately retorted to Lin Jiqing. Linfen also chimed in, yes, who's small? My son-in-law is an adult, not small. Besides, if we have a child, it doesn't need you two to take care of it, so what are you afraid of? Here, you have some soup too. It's a papaya and carp soup, your favorite. Linfen then brought out another casserole and beckoned Lin Jiqing over with a wave of her hand. I'm not drinking it. Lin Jiqing turned her head away. Hey, if you don't drink it, I've stewed it for so long, you'll be sleeping outside tonight if you don't dare not drink it. Drink it. Linfen ladled a bowlful from the pot.